Hello and welcome to WordPress Publishing. In this session, we are going to give you a tour of the WordPress admin area, discuss the various setting options that are available to you, cover the differences between pages and posts, fully demonstrate the WordPress editor, create a WordPress website as opposed to just a blog, and a whole lot more. So if you're ready, let's get to it. All right. Step one, basically, of course, is to log into your WordPress site. And we've already done that. Again, you go to your domain.extension / either wp-admin or wp-login.php. Either direction will take you to the login form page, and after you enter your details, you'll get inside of WordPress. When you get inside, you're initially going to land on what they refer to as the dashboard. So some of the things that you need to know when you look at the dashboard, we've just installed the latest stable version of WordPress, which at the time of this recording is 3.3.2. You'll notice that there's a big graphical icon over here that basically lets us know what version that we're using. There's a bunch of information here in terms of basic settings about adding real content, customizing the site, etc., and links that will take you to the individual areas of the WordPress backend to do these kind of things. If you're brand new to WordPress, you might want to leave this here for a bit and read some of the documentation. There's some first steps with WordPress, etc., information right online. However, since we're going to teach you everything you need to know about this, we're going to go ahead and just dismiss this. You can either do that through this link here or this top one right here. So I'll go ahead and click the dismiss, and we'll basically see that information go away. This is the more standard looking WordPress dashboard, and even though that big graphic icon has gone away, you'll notice that it still tells us what version of WordPress we are using, WordPress 3.3.2. It'll also tell you what theme is currently active. Currently active is 2011. It says with 6 widgets, and it's giving you a notice here that search engines are blocked. Remember that when we did the installation earlier, we set the privacy settings to basically turn the meta robot statement to not index or follow our content, and as a result, basically, it's not that you're stopping the search engines, but you're informing the search engines that you don't want your content indexed at this time. So this is an important thing to pay attention to, because obviously when you go live, you need to switch this value. As far as the Right Now feature is concerned, you can see under Content showing you how many posts and pages you have. By default, WordPress has created one post. It has created one page. It has created one category, and you'll see that it has created no tags. We'll talk about what all these things are here as we go along. Under Discussion, it's saying that there was one comment that has been made, and that comment was made on this default post that WordPress created. That one comment is in approved status. There are no comments pending, and no comments have been marked as spam. On the right-hand side is the Quick Press area. This area allows you to very quickly create a post, not a page, but a post, and you can simply enter the post title, you can enter the content, you can enter some tags separated by commas, and then you can either save it as a draft or publish it straight from here. So if that's something that you want to keep, you can keep it. If it's something that you want to get rid of, you have that ability too. We'll talk about how to customize this basically right now. So there's a number of ways that you can customize your dashboard. You'll see that we're looking at some of the recent comments that are coming in with the status, basically giving us the ability to see how many that there are, how many are pending, how many are basically see the approved, see how many have been marked spam, see how many of them are in the trash, etc. And then there's all sorts of other information Not sure why we have an RSS error. That's very strange. So this typically would show content about WordPress from the blog, and it's being fed through an RSS feed. Obviously, we have some RSS issues going on right now on this particular installation, or WordPress is one of the two. I'm not sure really what's going on, but that's why we're seeing these errors and we're not seeing content. You'll notice that there's 3 bits of information that are all trying to be pulled via the RSS technology, real simple syndication. Otherwise, these would be populated with information. You have the ability to move these around and change the layout and or even get rid of them altogether should you want to do so. So I'll just point that out now. By default, if you look at, let's look at the quick press box up here, you'll notice that on the very top bar line, it just says the word quick press and nothing else. But if I hover over it, on the right-hand side, you'll see now there's a drop-down arrow. And if I click on this, it's going to minimize that quick press area. So I can leave it inside of my dashboard, but simply minimize it such that I don't see the contents until I want it, and I can click, of course, to toggle and expand. Jerry, did you have some information on the RSS?
The errors, it looks like it's a DNS issue. It cannot resolve the host names, so it can't find blog search, WordPress Planet, and that. And I just did a check on the Liquid Web Servers version, and it's working fine. And then I did a check on HostGator, and it seems to be something with the DNS at HostGator. So what happens is it can't figure out where to go look for WordPress.org.
Yeah.
So that's because other people are saying they're also having the errors. It's just something that you typically have to reload and hope that it resolves the next time. So it's just not able to find those.
It's nothing that we've done on our end.
And it's not. And I believe it's not WordPress. It's not a WordPress script error. Because you also see it's not only WordPress.org, it's also Google.com if you look in the lower left.
Right.
So it's not able to figure out where to go look for those names to find the information.
And I'll be honest, this is one of those Murphy situations. I have never experienced this particular issue ever before. Having created,
we're getting messages that other people on HostGator are seeing that exact same thing.
Okay.
But
so
it's a DNS issue, dynamic name server issue, and typically if you just reload the page, it'll often fix itself, but not always.
Well, that didn't work. But anyway, I'm not going to concern ourselves with it. It's not that big of a deal. But I do believe Jerry has specific expertise in this. So if he says it's a domain name server issue, and if other HostGator clients are seeing the same thing, that's probably something that we need to talk to HostGator about in terms of seeing that it gets fixed.
The main point is that it's not affecting the work of WordPress. This is just reading in news articles. This is not actually a function inside WordPress. WordPress should still work just fine.
Which is a good thing. All right, so back to customizing the dashboard. So you've already seen that we can minimize any of these that we'd like. That's all available to you. You can also actually move the order of them. So for example, let's say that you do use the quick press option. I'll maximize it again. Let's say that's something that you do actually use and you want it to be on your left-hand side. If you left-click on the title bar and you drag, you'll see that dynamically you have the ability to switch the positions of these around. If you want to get rid of something altogether, that happens through screen options. And one thing to note about screen options is the options that you have will change depending upon which screen or page you're on. So when I click screen options, we're going to see a toggle of options available. And these options are unique or specific to the dashboard page that we're on. If we were on a page creation, basically the page to create a new page or a post, the options would be different. So please note. We can change the number of columns. Right now you see it's in 2 columns if we wanted it in 3. We could choose it to 3 and things become narrower all the way up to 4. Of course, we could change it to 1 where everything's wide and stacked on top of each other. We can go back to 2. And then uniquely, you can turn things off. So, we dismissed that welcome. If we wanted to turn it back on, that's basically how you get it back. That was what that dismiss option was doing. It's the same thing here. If you're not all that interested in seeing other WordPress news, the WordPress blog, incoming links, etc., you can just go ahead and turn all those off. Having done that now, you can just click screen options to make it go away, and you see the options that we have. Of course, it looks kind of funny because we have this empty space sitting over here with these dashed lines, but like I said, you can reorder these any way you want. So if you do want a 2-column layout and you do want to keep these specific items, you might want to reorder them that way. The end result is they will stay the way that you leave them for your particular user. Each user, and you can have many users of your WordPress site, have the ability to set up their dashboard and other items uniquely to them, and the settings will stay on a user-by-user basis. So just because you set it up this way for yourself doesn't necessarily mean that if you create a login for a client that they're going to see it the same way. If you want to control the way a client or any other user would see it, you actually have to log out from your account, log back in with theirs, and then update the dashboard. Of course, they'll always have the ability to overwrite it. You won't be able to stop that, but you can customize it for them should you want to, and I typically do for my own clients. Right here in the top right is a help toggle, and you have the ability to get all sorts of help. I just want to point that out. There's the overview, navigation, layout, content, etc., and clicking help again toggles that back. Next, let's talk about the profile bar up here at the top. This is kind of a newer thing. Yeah, Jerry.
Just wanted to point out that some plugins and themes and other things will add their own dashboard panels. So you might have more than just what you're seeing here, depending on what plugins and themes you've installed.
Perfect. Profile bar. This is a very handy thing that can speed up your efficiency through WordPress. If you click on the W logo itself, you'll be taken to a page that looks like this. It says welcome to WordPress, gives you the version name. It's going to give you some what's new. It's going to tell you that version 3.3.2 addressed some security issues from the previous and fixed 12 bugs. If you want more information, you can actually see the release notes that they included in regards to the release of version 3.3.2. Similarly, 3.3.1 also addressed, it says a security issue, so you can see the verbiage there is different. Some security issues, so more than one, and a security issue and fix 15 bugs. So these are really good pieces of information to know. We get asked all the time, how frequently, should you update to a new version of WordPress, or how quickly should you update to a new version of WordPress after it's released? And my response to that is it depends upon the reason that WordPress was updated. So if you see that WordPress was updated simply because it fixed a few bugs, if you're not seeing bugs on your site, then maybe it's not that big of a deal to update all that quickly. If you see a statement that says it addressed some security issues, meaning more than one plural, then you would probably be more apt or more interested in updating sooner than later. Anyway, there's just some more information about WordPress and about kind of how to work with the latest version, etc. And again, that's accessed through clicking the W WordPress icon itself. And of course, there's more abilities to get more information straight from WordPress itself. The second one down here under documentation, if you can see in the lower left-hand side of my screen, you'll see that it would go to codex.wordpress.org. This is geeky, but all the information on the WordPress code itself, the core code that forms WordPress, is found through the codex URL. So if you get into wanting to extend themes or customize themes or plugins, etc., and you have questions about the WordPress code and how to work with it, this is a good link to have. The next says this is the site title, and this is actually, if you click on it, it just gives you the ability to see the front page of your specific WordPress installation. One thing that's WordPress is awesome. Jerry and I both love WordPress, but it's not to say that there aren't some frustrations too. One of the things that's kind of frustrating is the fact that some things inside of WordPress update dynamically, and here's what I mean. And we'll go back to the dashboard here for a second. You'll notice that if I click recent drafts and I click it or drag it above plugins, that it takes, or basically in some sense you would say it's been saved. If I navigate off of this page anywhere else and I come right back to the dashboard, you'll see that I'm trying to think now. Did I drag plugins above or not? Okay, I'm going to pay attention this time. Plugins are up at the top. Recent drafts are at the bottom. It should stay. And it did. So these items are dynamic, and simply just, opening them or closing them or dragging them around is enough basically to save the setting. So sometimes that's the way WordPress works. Other times you'll actually see where there's actually buttons that have to be clicked. For example, if I was going to enter a new post via the quick press feature, when I was finished, I'd either have to click a button to save the draft or to reset, or click a button to publish the new post. It's not going to happen just as a result of just typing in the content. Same thing with links. Sometimes when you click a link on a site, it will open in a new tab. Other times when you click on a link within inside of WordPress, it will open in the same window. This is frustrating. Since I typically want to open a new tab when I do things, I've just gotten into the habit of pretty much every time since I'm using Firefox, I simply right-click and choose Open Link in New Tab, which is what I'll do there. And you'll see that now we have the new tab open, and it's taken us right to the home page for our installation. That's what that second feature does. Next is basically the updates area. You'll see that there's a little like recycle icon that you can basically refresh, and it's saying that right now that there's one update, and you can see the tooltip says it's a plugin update. You'll also notice down here on this side it says updates 1, and under plugins it says 1. All of these three things are pointing to the same thing, basically that there's an update to be made, and the specific update that needs to be made is with a plugin as opposed to WordPress or something else. The next dialog looking icon basically is about comments. You can see it says 0 comments awaiting moderation. If there were comments that needed to be moderated, you would get a value here. It would also make you give you a notice here on the left-hand side as well. The other cool thing is this new area. You have the ability to create a new post, add new media, create a new link, create a new page, or create a new user. Basically just gives you access to these areas just simply from this profile bar. So I could go to users and then add new. That would be one way to add a new user. Or I could simply go new user. Both would take us to the same place. It's just that the functions out of the profile bar just make things a little bit more streamlined. So just one thing to note. There's typically multiple ways to get to the same place within WordPress. Over here on the right-hand side of the profile bar, you'll see it says howdy, and then it has the WordPress username that I created when we created the installation. So whatever username you've created is going to populate for you when you log in. This is one thing that I kind of surprised at, but we get asked a bunch, basically, how do I log out? You simply hover over the username area, and then you can either go to edit your profile or you can choose to log out of WordPress altogether. All right. So next, what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to move from top to bottom through this left-hand menu, and I'm going to, at least in a top-level sense, cover each one of these items. After we've kind of gone through and just kind of glossed over them, so to speak, we'll come back and spend a lot more time in the settings area. We're going to spend more time talking about categories and pages and posts, etc. But at least just want to just start from the top, work our way down, at least just talk about each one of these areas. So it goes without saying that right now we're on the dashboard. You can see it's activated here. The dashboard is basically your home page, and so these in effect are the exact same link. The updates will take you basically to the page that will tell you specifically what the updates are about. So you could either click on this link here, I'll click on this now, and it's going to give you basically all of the updates information for that particular page. You can see that it last checked for a WordPress update at a specific date and time, and you can click a button to check again, and it's giving us a statement that we have the latest version of WordPress. If that were not the case, we would get a message that basically says that a new version is available, and it would give us the ability to update to the new version of WordPress. Basically, under plugins, you'll see that we have a notice that one of the plugins, which is why this notice is here, is currently considered out of date, and it's giving us the ability to go ahead and update it should we want. It says that we have version 2.5.3 installed, and the newest version is 2.5.6. You can view the details of the new version, and here's something else to pay attention to. It says compatibility with WordPress 3.3.2, 100% compatibility according to its author. This is important to note before you go updating plugins, because if you know that you're running, say, WordPress 3.4, which we'll talk about on the advanced day, WordPress 3.4 is coming. If you were running 3.4 and you notice that it says it's only compatible with 3.3.2, you might want to pause and just make sure that you do in effect want to update prior to doing that. And this brings up one other thing to mention in regards to updating. Jared, were you jumping on to say it?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Backup.
Yeah.
Backup. Backup. And then, of course, remember to back up.
Right. And
don't forget to back up. And you should always back up.
we're gonna beat backup like a oh, that's the wrong thing to say. We're gonna remind you to back up a whole bunch of times. Backing up is your friend.
You should back up before doing a WordPress update. You should back up before doing a plugins update. You should back up after you've done some major content updates or upload a bunch of media, and back up. And Marianne, it's backup. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so backing up your WordPress installation is a very wise thing to do prior to updating anything on your site, specifically like Jerry mentioned, the WordPress core, updating plugins. You'll see down here that it says your themes are all up to date. WordPress does have the ability to, if you've gotten a theme from the WordPress directory or what's also called the repository, basically the area over at WordPress where freely distributed themes are stored. If you got your theme from the directory repository over at WordPress, when the theme creator creates a new version or makes updates, your site then basically checks your active themes, or checks your themes, installed themes rather, against the directory listing, and if your themes are considered to be out of date, you'll get warning notices in regards to that too. If you've received themes, commercial themes, premium themes from other locations, this will typically not happen because this is a WordPress feature, and at the time that I make this, WordPress doesn't allow you to host premium themes over at WordPress.org. They do now allow you to feature a theme that is a commercial theme. So they're kind of starting to kind of go that direction at least a little bit, because it wasn't all that long ago that they didn't do that either. But still, as far as the ability to upload a theme to WordPress.org and let people actually use them on their sites, you can only do that if you're making your theme freely available. So just something else to note. All right, next we have posts. Yes, Jerry.
You were just really breaking up, but of course not. I went to say something. You're doing fine. But yeah, this is updates, and we will be talking about how to talk about later.
Yeah, there's a number of different ways.
Here, Kevin?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Is the audio bad again?
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Yeah, it just went really dead. I mean, so.
And sorry, everybody, for the technical glitches. I am not running anything on my machine that would stop us from having good audio. Okay,
This
so
buffer is really bad.
bummer. And I wish I knew what to do to improve this. Unfortunately, I don't think that there's anything that I can do on my end. So I'm going to go ahead and talk. I'll try to slow down just a little bit, maybe, to see if that's an issue. But Jerry, if you find that there's issues, please just let me know if I need to repeat something. We are going to move to posts. So anytime that you hover over one of these icons, you'll now see that there's a box that kind of flies out. Right?
You're just really bad. Why don't you mute yourself completely, or mute it on GoToMeeting for a second? And what are we talking about?
We are talking about posts.
Okay, so you mute yourself for a second, and we're going to talk about posts in just a minute. Kevin will be back, and we're going to go over the bit about posts. So hopefully when Kevin comes back in, it'll be all back in sync. Sorry about the audio problems, and we'll see. So come on back, Kevin, and see how we're doing. Or don't come on back.
Well, I'm back, but I didn't do anything other than unmute myself and then remute myself. The audio settings say that everything is correct, so I don't know how to improve this.
You sound much better already. Yeah, because you can't leave, because if you leave, everybody gets kicked out.
I know
So somebody was asking, why can't you just hang up and come back in? And I don't know if you can give me organizer and then do that or not, but I think we'll save that as last resort.
Yeah, I don't think that's actually possible.
Okay.
I could be wrong, but I don't think so. So can you hear me now?
Yeah, Kevin, I can hear you great. What about posts?
All right. Posts. You see a flyout box that flies out to the right, basically. There's obviously 4 options here. You can click the top to see all posts. The second one will allow you to add a new post. The next will actually allow you to manage categories, and the next will allow you to manage tags. If I hover over pages, I'll just jump over here for just a second. You'll notice that it says there's a listing to see all pages or add a new. You'll notice there's only 2 options here as opposed to 4, and that's because of this. You need to know that posts and pages are treated differently by WordPress. You only have the ability to assign categories and assign tags, and we'll cover more about these, to a post. Pages are more for static type of content for your website, and you cannot attach either categories or tags to a WordPress page, only to a post. So if I click on all posts, we will see a listing of all of the posts that we have on our site. In this case, we only have the one that was named Hello World. This is one that was dynamically and automatically created as part of our installation process through WordPress. WordPress populates some amount of content such that when you visit your site on the front end, there's something to see. You'll see that right now there's the Hello World post, and there has been one comment basically left to that post. You'll see it over here under recent comments. You'll see that there's one category that they've by default named uncategorized, etc. They just basically pre-populated the site with some amount of content, so there's something here to see. The same goes with the sample page. There is a sample page, and if I click it, you will see that there is some content on this page. You'll notice that there's no sidebar on this particular page. They've used a custom page template. And this content is different. So they've created one page, one post, and they've attached one comment to one post, and they've also created one category as part of the default installation. We need to remove all of those items prior to being finished with our installation, and that's typically what's referred to as WordPress cleanup. So a quick view, though, around this all posts page. I just want to point out a few things. You're seeing up here the word all, and it says all one. Right now at the moment there's only one post inside of our installation. It says that post has been published, so it's saying how many posts have been published. They've been published one. If we were to create a post in draft mode, it would show us how many posts were in draft, and we'll explain what that happens when we go create new. We can also do a number of other things. We can see our posts by date range or by categories. Basically, we have the ability to filter the responses. Bulk actions is another important feature that you might use in the future, and you have the ability to do some bulk actions, either edit in bulk or move to trash. Now, for me, mostly it's the move to trash that happens in the bulk, not so much on posts, but more on comments. But you can even bulk edit. So if you had multiple posts, you could click on the checkbox next to each. Of course, I only have one at this point, but if I had 10 posts, I could click on 3 of them. I could choose the bulk actions to edit, and I could click apply, and it would give me the ability to edit those 3 posts or whatever were selected by bulk. Same thing, if you happen to have some posts that you no longer wanted on your site for some particular reason, you could tick the box next to each, choose move to trash, apply, and it would move the selected posts over to the trash. WordPress in the past, it used to actually delete posts, but they no longer do that. So now deleting post content is actually a 2-step process. You have to first move it to the trash, and then you actually have to go to the trash and delete it. And we'll show that here in a bit. One thing that I think doesn't get talked about a lot is this icon set over here. Currently, we're looking at it in list view, basically a list of posts, but there is another option, and it's over here to the right of it, called excerpt view. And if you click on it, you get just a little bit of information, basically a little excerpt that was from the actual post content itself. This can be really helpful if you have a number of posts on your site that are somewhat similar or closely on the same topic. If you wanted to edit a particular post, or if you want to delete a particular post, rather than having to kind of go into each one to make sure that you are looking at the right one, you can click on the excerpt view and see a little excerpt snippet about that particular post to give you some indication as to which post was the right one to either edit and or delete. You'll notice that when I'll put it back to list view. If I hover over the post title, you'll see that I get some other options. I can click edit to edit. I can click quick edit to quick edit, and we'll show you that. I can click trash to actually move this to the trash individually. or I can click this link to actually view the post live. So let's talk about Quick Edit first. If I click Quick Edit, you'll see it brings up a number of options. It's going to show me the post title itself, and I can change that here. It's going to show me what's called the post slug. This is basically the way that the URL is made up. You'll notice that by default, WordPress is going to create the post slug. It's going to basically follow the post title. It's going to convert the text to all lowercase, and it's going to separate each word with a hyphen. So hello world becomes hello world, but all in lowercase and with the hyphen between it. You don't want any spaces in your slugs. This is done by default, but if you ever wanted to change the slug, you can change the slug here, and this will affect basically the URL to the page. You could change the date that it was posted, and here's something that a lot of people I don't think realize. You actually have the ability to backdate posts. So today, as I make this, it's June 9th. However, if I wanted to attach this post back to January 9th of this year, you can actually backdate content. I'm not saying that this is something that you want to get into a lot, but if you do want to make a site feel a little more seasoned, such that it doesn't seem brand new as if it was just created today, you could actually create a handful of posts and then backdate them to some time in the past, and at least from the visitor standpoint, it would look like your site had been around for a while. The use of that is entirely up to you. Yeah, Jerry.
The slug, somebody had a question about that. That's basically, depending on your permalink settings, is what your URL will show, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we'll get into that later.
Yeah, it works in conjunction with your permalink settings. Just setting this by itself does not necessarily mean that this is going to be used for the URL structure. It is dependent upon the permalinks settings, and we'll get that down to here in the bottom. Next, password protecting. You can do this inside of the full post as well. All this stuff you can do inside of the full post. I'm just showing you the quick edit ability, but you can actually password protect posts. We'll show that here later. You can even create a post that's private. I've never done this, but basically if you create a post that is private, what you need to know is it will only be shown to the individuals who are logged into the back end of WordPress. It'll never be shown on the actual public side of things. You have the ability to add or change categories. You should also note that multiple categories can be assigned to the same post. It's not just a one thing. Same thing with tags. You can assign as many tags as you'd like to a post. They get added and separated basically by commas. So tag 1, tag 2, tag 3, basically, if you wanted to do this. We'll talk more about categories and tags when we get to basically diving deeper into the creation of posts and pages. Well, posts specifically for categories and tags. You can either allow comments or not on a particular post. You can do this on a post by post basis. You can turn it off globally site-wide. We'll show that. You can allow pings and trackbacks. If you're not familiar with what those are, it's basically if someone makes a comment on their WordPress site and they include a URL to one of your WordPress pages, it actually has the ability to make a notification and basically post that information on your site as kind of like a comment, but it gets posted as what's called a trackback or a pingback. You can allow those or not. That's entirely up to you. For some sites, it would be a good thing, especially if it's more like a blogging type platform. If it's a regular like a website, then I would turn these off, because typically they get abused in terms of spamming. It's one of the ways that spammers try to basically get links and content basically published on other people's sites. You can change the status of a particular post. Currently you see that it's published. If I wanted to change it to draft or pending review, I could. A quick explanation of the three. Published basically means that that content is currently live and viewable by visitors. Pending review basically means that it's been saved, but it's not live on the site. But pending review is a notice, basically, that if you have a WordPress editor, if you have someone that's assigned as the editor, whether they have editor rights or administrator rights, it's basically just a visual cue that there is some post content that someone is saying that they are done with, but it needs to be reviewed either by an editor or by an admin. If you set something to draft mode, it's a visual indication that the creator of the post is not yet done with it. So an editor or an admin shouldn't be approving this content if it's in draft mode. It's a visual indication, again, that the post creator isn't finished. They need to come back and finish it. Once they're done with it, if they need to have it reviewed, they switch the status to pending review, and then the editor or the admin can then come by and review it. And if it's deemed to be good, they can go ahead and change it to published, which then makes it live to the public. Make this post sticky is the ability to basically force the post to stay at the top of the blog page. If we go back to the live site real quick, you'll see right now that we have the Hello World post, and you see a post date posted on June 9th, and then here's the simple little content. You can see that WordPress is displaying, at least this theme is displaying rather, what category it was posted to, uncategorized, and that there is one comment or reply to this particular post. If we go make a new post here real quick, and we can do that by going to post add new here, or to post add new here. Remember I said that there's typically a number of different ways you can add content. I'll click post add new. And just add a quick post. I'll click publish just to make it live very quickly. You can choose again categories, and we'll go over that in just a bit. Now that the post has been published, you see that statement up at the top. If we go back to the site and refresh it, you're going to see that the Hello World post was forced down and the very new post was put at the top. So typically how content works, as far as post content works on the blog page, the newest content is going to be shown at the top. If, however, you wanted to change that, we could go back to posts, all posts, where we were, go to quick edit for Hello World, and choose make this post sticky. This is, again, theme dependent, but I'm pretty confident that this theme supports it. We'll find out if I'm right or wrong here in a second. And it does. So you'll see that, again, this is a theme dependent thing, but because this post became, or we attached it as sticky, you'll see it says the word featured now, and that post is at the top, even though we know that this post underneath it is actually the newest bit of content. And if we were to create a new post, it would then push live post down and it would put the new post above it, but it would keep the featured post at the top. So this is just one additional thing to consider when creating post content. I'll go ahead and take that feature off. That's kind of it in terms of quick editing. The full editor is very similar to, I mean, it's the exact same way that you create new post content. So I'll just save that feature for that. Again, like I said, you can get to post add new through this button or post add new through this left-hand nav option. Either way, it's going to take you to the same add new post page that we were just at. Post categories now underneath it is where you can add new categories. And I mentioned a couple of times now that through WordPress you can add most features through a variety of different areas. So please note that there's a specific categories page specific to categories on your site, but you can also add new categories from the post editor, and we'll show that live as well. By default, the one category that we have live is named uncategorized. You can see that the slug, the category also has a slug, is again the same name in all lowercase, and that there's now 2 posts that have been assigned to the uncategorized category, which is kind of backwards when you think about it. So I would recommend that you never leave an uncategorized category name on your site. It looks strange. It looks like basically a WordPress user that doesn't know what they're doing. But you may definitely want to have a category that's kind of a catch-all. You'll see when we get through the settings area that there will be one category specified as a catch-all, and I would suggest that you use it for that. If I go to uncategorized, you can see if I hover over it, I get options also. I'll go ahead and click Edit, which is the full editor for the category, and we get to here. This is where we can change it. So I'm going to change it, and you don't have to use this, but I'm going to change it to General. Now, you'll understand or see underneath it says the name is how it appears on your site. If you output a list of categories on your site, it's going to output exactly like this. So you may want to use title case where you capitalize the first letter of each word. It's entirely up to you. The next is the slug, and again it says it's the URL friendly version of the name, usually all lowercase and contains only letters, numbers, and hyphens. Generally speaking, you simply just use whatever you've used in the name category, use right there, and you just use it in all lowercase. So since there's only one word, I would just type it as general. You can have parent and child categories. So if I was going to create a site on cars, if I was a car enthusiast, I might have a category that was, I don't know, trucks, and I could have a listing of different categories of, Ford, Chevy, whatever, under trucks, or cars, or exotics, or whatever. So you can create categories either to be all parents or to have a parent and then basically a child category underneath it. If you set it to none, basically, then it becomes a parent category. The category description you can use, but basically it says it's not prominent by default. Some themes may show it, most, however, do not. So this is not something I typically touch. And I'll click Update. So now what you see is we now have a category named General. The slug again is also general, and it's automatically taken those 2 posts that had been previously assigned to uncategorized, and it's now assigned them to the general post category. So that's just something to think of. Categories are something that you're going to want to think out a bit before you start creating a lot of content. It's not that you can't go and add them later, but it's wise to have a good strategy right at the beginning. It is perfectly okay to have a number of categories preloaded in here that don't currently have any posts assigned to them. So just because you haven't created more posts than this, don't think that you can't create more categories. You certainly can. You simply come over here to the left, add a new category name, add the new slug, determine whether it's going to be a parent category or a child category, and then add it. So here's what I'm going to do for this one real quick just so you can see it visually. I'm going to create one called parent. Again, the slug I'm just going to do all in lowercase. I'm not going to select I'm going to select none for parent because this is going to be the parent, and I'm going to click Add New Category. And you'll see that even though there's no posts assigned to it, we now have that category available to us. Next, I'm going to assign one named Child. Same thing with the slug. Maybe I'll do child category just so you can further get in your mind how I would do that. I would do child hyphen category, again, making sure that you are spelling properly. This time, since you've already created the parent, you can select it in the drop-down menu. You have to create the parents first. So I'll choose the parent here, and I'll click Add New Category, and you'll see how it works over here on the right-hand side. Now you have this long dash before this child category name. That's just a quick indicator to you that this is a child category of parent. So just wanted to point that out, which is why I wanted to create it. So that's basically how categories are created. In terms of what categories are, you can think of categories and tags as kind of being they're very useful, especially on a WordPress website. They allow a lot of flexibility. You can show content by categories. You can post tag clouds that show kind of dynamically what content you're writing about if you are tagging content. Of course, if you're not adding tags to your content, that becomes unavailable to you. But categories are kind of like the broad, more like a table of contents in a book. And then tags are really very specific to content. Another thing with tags is you can actually tag or add a tag to a piece of content that may, at least at the top level, may not look like it has any business being attached to it. I don't know if I can come up with a really good example live, but you could write an entire post on Donald Trump, let's say, and maybe the entire post is on Donald Trump, but tag it with something like President Obama, since there's issues between those two. The post itself might say nothing about President Obama. Maybe it's entirely something on his business as a real estate investor, or maybe it's on his business as a media guy. But you can still tag it with something else that's specific or relevant to the post, but may not actually be something that's talked about in the post whatsoever. So that's kind of one of the ways that tags can work. Next is media. You have two options here, the library and add new. So the media library is the ability to basically add content into your WordPress installation. All of these by default are put into your uploads folder on your site. You can upload all sorts of things, much more than just images. You can upload images, you can upload PDFs, you can upload video, you can upload audio, etc. And at the moment, you'll see that there's nothing in here. If I wanted to add new, I would click Add New, and it gives me the ability to upload it. Prior to some of the new releases, you actually, had to define what type of content you were uploading before you did it. Now the uploader has become extremely smart, and if you have media content that gets uploaded, it automatically figures out what the format is, and it properly takes care of it. Down here is something that we'd like to point out, though. You'll see that it says maximum upload file size, and for me, it's 64 megabytes, which is pretty generous. Many hosting accounts, and this is dependent upon your hosting environment, have this set much more stringently, sometimes as little as 2 megabytes. So while 2 megabytes should be absolutely plenty for uploading something, say like an image, you shouldn't be uploading images that large to your website. Make page load time way too slow. But if you're trying to upload a new theme, or a PDF or something, if it exceeds this value, the built-in WordPress uploader will not work. So that's something to pay attention to. You may have to talk to your host to see if they can increase that value for you, but it is hosting account dependent. This is not set by WordPress, it's set by your host. So you can either drag files into this area now, or you can click this button to select files from your computer. So I'll click select files, and we'll go get an image. So I created, basically just snagged a number of car images, and I'll click on one of them, and I'll click open. And you'll see it starts to crunch it, and it's going to give us the little thumbnail image, and it's going to give us some information. Now, by default, it's going to pull the title from the actual name of the image itself. So the name of the file initially was camaro.jpg, and you can see that the title that it's using is Camaro. The title information is going to pop up basically as a tooltip if anybody ever hovers over the image itself. So it's important to think about from that standpoint. It's also important to think about for SEO. So I don't know, some descriptive information about what that particular image is about, and if you're optimizing for a particular set of keyword phrases, you might want to make sure that that is in there as well. Alt text or alternative text is always wise to do, especially good if you want to keep your theme or your site valid in terms of code. Alt text is required. It's basically shown to your visitor whenever the image can't be loaded for some reason. So basically, man, I can't type right now. Okay, so this is only shown if the image does not appear. Caption text, if you enter it, know that it will show up underneath the image. It actually shows up immediately on the page, as opposed to the title, which only shows on hover, and opposed to the alt text, which only shows if the image can't be loaded. Description information can also be added in terms or in regards to the image, and this would show up on what's called an attachment page. Right now, I haven't attached this image to any one particular post, but you can do that. The file URL is actually the path that's right back to where it's going to upload the image. So you can see that it's going to put it in the Uploads folder, which is inside of the WP content folder, and it's going to create a particular path. It's going to give it the year, and it's going to give it, I know it says 06. Oh, it's because it's June. So it's month, year, and then the actual image name itself. And you can click Save All Changes. This is one time that you have to click Save. And now that image will be added. You'll see that right now it says it's unattached, and you can attach it to something. Basically what that just means is that right now it's just an image that I've uploaded via the media library. I haven't necessarily told it through WordPress that I want this particular image to be attached to any particular piece of content, like a post on my site. It's also going to show you obviously who did the authoring or who did the upload and when it was done. And you can continue to manage that image here. So the library is, of course, going to give you the listing of all of your media files, like I said, whether it's images or videos or PDFs, audios, etc. And then, like I said, you can either add new through Media Add New or through this location here. Next is links. Yeah, Jerry.
Somebody just asked, why would you do it here as opposed to the individual pages or posts they have an add media? And basically my response would be, it just depends on your workflow. You might have a whole bunch of pictures that you know you're going to work, and it might just be easier to upload them and have them hanging around to use. Just, you know, there's no advantage of one over the other that I know of.
There's a couple of things to think about when you're talking about doing that. Number one, I'll tell you one of the reasons why I use the media library as opposed to using it from inside of the post. For one particular client, I do a lot of email creation. We send email through Constant Contact for her. And basically how I upload, I have to host images on her site in order to use them inside of the email, because Constant Contact only allows you to host a small amount of them on their own server. So because they're not really attached to posts, just images that I'm going to use for email content, I come here to the media library, I upload them direct, and then I get the the file URL like you just saw, and then I can use that over at Constant Contact to make sure that the image shows. Yes, I could do the same thing by logging into her site via FTP and putting them in a particular area. I just like to put them inside of a WordPress installation because she frequently will like to use them sometime in the future. So that's one reason. The other reason is that when they are attached to something, they actually have the ability to create what's called an attachment page, and we'll see that here in just a minute. But the attachment page is basically just a specific unique page inside of WordPress created for the attached media, and if you don't attach it to something, then it can't do that. So there are times when you might want to have an attachment page created for an image, and there are times when maybe you don't. You just want to be able to call up this image for use in other places, whether that's inside of your WordPress installation, which is going to be probably the truth most of the time, or outside of your WordPress installation, like I was just saying for the particular email setup. So like Jerry said, it just kind of depends upon what you plan to do with it. Under links, you'll see there's all links, the ability to add new, and there's also link categories. By default, WordPress is going to populate a number of links inside of this links area, and you'll see that it's assigned a link category named blog roll to each. Now, personally, maybe Jerry has a different take on this. Personally, I don't use links in this fashion. I don't use link categories. I completely, in all of my installations, I just completely delete these, and I'm done with it. Of course, it doesn't hurt. You're not really hurting anything to leave them here. It's entirely up to you whether you want to show them on your site. Right now, they're being shown. If we go to the page, you see under, actually these are RSS. I guess it's not actually showing the links. They used to always show the blog roll by default, but they're not showing it at the moment. So they must have changed that. But you can choose to show them or not. You can choose to leave them here or not. For me, there might be a really good reason to use them. But primarily when I'm building WordPress sites, I'm building WordPress sites as opposed to using WordPress specifically as a blogging platform. So my needs might be different than yours. You might want to do a little more research in regards to link categories. Jerry, do you have different information on that?
The only time I've actually used it for any of my clients was one of my clients wanted to have a few reciprocal links, and so we built a small directory in here of links, and his particular theme outputs it. But there's no real advantage. I mean, you don't want to have a business site that links to WordPress documentation and plugins and things like that, and a lot of themes do output the blog roll. I usually delete them all. I don't know if bulk actions can make it visible. They had one of the versions had it, and I thought it went away. But yeah, see, you can't make them like invisible. If you can make them invisible, if you need them for internal reference, that might be something. But I would just get rid of them. Somebody asked, what is a blog roll? Early on when blogs were coming online, you did a lot of reciprocal links to like the blogs you read, so that you would have a list of all the different other blogs you read. You might say it's a tech blog in the tech category or whatever. So this is a blog roll saying, here's my list of blogs I read. That's what blog roll means.
Yeah, it's basically just a list of the blogs that you follow and are interested in. And of course, if you're coming up a lot of times in other people's blog roll, then apparently you're doing a really good job in creating really good, interesting viral type content. That's kind of the way it works. So it says visible, yes, but the reality is, click that. It's interesting that it says visible. I've never even messed with this, but it says visible, yes, but the reality is none of this is being populated to your WordPress site unless you add it specifically. It's typically added through a widget. So if you haven't added the blog roll, if you haven't decided to show links, even though they are here in the back end of WordPress, they're actually not being shown right now live to the visitor. So you can leave them if you want some type of documentation to these type of things in the future, or you can simply click the top checkbox, which you can see selects all, and then you can click the drop-down action for delete, and then click apply, and you'll see that 7 links were deleted, which is what I typically do, but again, that might not be the correct thing to do for your particular site or operation. Add new, obviously, is pretty straightforward. You get the ability to add a new link, and you can simply just follow along. You have the ability to give the link a name, obviously the full web address for the link, whatever that piece of text is going to be linked to. You have the ability to give a description. It says this will be shown when someone hovers over the link. Basically, it's being used like title information, like we talked about with the image. And then you can assign a link category, either one existing or create a new category for that particular link. Again, this is different than post categories. Remember that. This is specific just to links. And then there's a bunch of other information in here as well, whether you want it to open up in a new tab or cause it to open up in the current, but at the top, etc. Some advanced stuff down here as well. Again, because I don't mess with links at all, these are things that are currently outside of my expertise to even teach you about. Link categories, again, it's simply just going to list the categories that you have currently on your site, similar to post categories, and the facility works exactly the same way in terms of adding new link categories. Pages, you have the ability to see all pages and add new. We'll skip over this for right now. We'll come back to it because a lot of this training is going to be the same way that we work with posts. But comments, if I click on this, you can see it's going to list the comments. It's also going to show how many are pending, how many were approved. Actually, in this case, one's approved and doesn't show the number, but you can click this button, basically segment to the approved, how many of them were labeled as spam, and how many of them were sent to trash. This is all pretty straightforward, except for I will mention the spam category. This gets asked a lot. If you get a comment on your site, if someone makes a comment on the site and it shows up and you're looking at it, you can see that as I hover over it, I get the ability to do things. If it wasn't yet approved, it would say approve. This has already been approved, so I could unapprove it, basically just remove it from the live site. I could reply specifically to this comment. If I do that, and the theme is set up for what's called nested comments, it basically puts your comment underneath theirs, which is a cool feature. It's only if you have nested comments set up in settings and if the theme is set up to work with it. Just note that. You can still do quick edit of comments, the full editor, and then you see down here it says spam or trash. If you click this option to mark the comment as spam, here's basically what you need to know as far as what's happening in the back end. Basically, it's sending a notice to WordPress.org that you believe that this particular comment, and from this particular comment author, since they have to have basically an author name, they have to input, they don't have to put a website address, but they do have to enter an email address. You believe that this particular comment is spam. It adds it into their repository that basically is fueling the Akismet plugin, the plugin that can be used to try to reduce comment spam. And so if you kind of think of it that way, the plugin supposedly is getting smarter over time because as more WordPress publishers are potentially seeing a comment from the same user with the same email address and marking it as spam, it's basically picking up on the fact that, you know, if 100 users, WordPress users, basically labeled a particular comment from an individual author as spam, then there's probably a good chance that this individual is spamming, and it becomes something that gets tripped up through the Akismet plugin. So it's basically what you're doing is marking things as spam. You're helping the Akismet plugin to become smarter over time. It's not like there's anything there's no nasty grams that get sent to this individual. There's, no one knocks at their door and says, hey, quit spamming. It's an internal process in the back end for WordPress, specifically for use with the Akismet plugin. Under appearance, we have the ability to add themes, change themes, work with widgets, customize menus. If the theme has theme options, that becomes available. The ability to do change the background, to change the header, if available by the theme, and then to actually work with the theme editor itself. There's a lot here, and I'm looking at my time thinking I way overshot what I was trying to teach in this section. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to very quickly, we're going to talk a lot more about plugins and themes in the next session. After this is themes. The session after that is plugins. So I'm probably going to bypass these two just for now. And we'll talk more about settings and some of these other things. So I'm going to go down to settings first, jump down to the bottom, and we'll look at each one of these in order. Settings general first. When we set up WordPress, we put in a site title that said this is the site title, which is being output right here dynamically by WordPress. If we want to change this, we simply just update that value. Similarly, the tagline is being shown underneath it. Not all themes will show it, but this particular 2011 that we're using right now does. The WordPress address URL and site address URL we'll talk more about in the security section. But here's one thing to note. Basically, you do have the ability to install WordPress in a different area. You can kind of make it, some people will tell you, more secure by putting it in something else. You can put it in a directory called private. And if you do that, the WordPress installation needs to know how to find it. Where do I find the WordPress software? If you did that, you would simply add /private, if I can spell right. And it would say that even though the actual site address for visitors is here, that WordPress should actually look for the WordPress files in the directory named private. And that can be done. It's not something that we actually recommend. We'll talk more about in the security section, but I do want to point out what that value is. In site address, this is the actual address shown to the visitor. There's one additional thing that you might want to know. By default, you'll see that it has http:// and then it has the URL. You will not see any www. If you have a client that wants to see the www, or if you just want to create something that looks more like kind of a standard website as opposed to kind of a blog, you can add the www dot in front of the site address and update it, and this will become, it will now show in the URL path as opposed to just showing without it. However, if you do put it there and you click the Save Changes button, which is here at the bottom, just note that it's going to automatically log you out. It's the way that WordPress is created. You haven't done anything wrong. It's just the location now of the site address has changed, and so for security measures it just logs you straight out. Once you log back in with the same details, it won't happen for you again, but it will do it the first time. The email address that you use for the administrator is here and can be updated. Again, anytime someone leaves a comment that needs to be moderated, etc., it's going to use this email value. Under membership, you'll see that it says anyone can register. Unless you have a really good reason to do this, I would not ever do this. Basically, this gives someone the ability to create their own WordPress account. Basically, anyone who visits your site could create their own WordPress account. If you do, you have the ability to set the new user default role, and it starts with the lowest privilege, which is subscriber, and of course it's not in order. because the next is the highest. So it goes from the lowest, and then it's the highest, and then it starts to kind of go in different orders. Technically speaking, this is the most open. Editor is the next, author is the next, contributor is the next, and technically at the very bottom would be subscriber. So if you really had a real good reason to do it, you probably would never want to let anybody add themselves as anything more than a subscriber, but truthfully, I would not recommend that you turn this on unless you have a really good reason to do so. I don't want to give anybody access to the back end of WordPress, even if it's in a limited basis, unless they actually need it. Time zone is the ability to set the time such that it's current for you and your location. When you click on the drop-down menu, you'll first just see times, which might be confusing. If you scroll up, though, you'll see locations. And so you can find a location that's near you. I think for us, it's under America first. Yeah, so it's under, you have to find the main category, which, let's see, I think I passed.
You're looking for Los Angeles?
Yeah, I was looking for the top category, but Los Angeles is here. So you can find an area. I should have seen America, though. And
it's Americas, I believe.
Americas. Okay.
Yeah, so it deals with North America and South America.
Actually, it just says America, but okay.
It just says America. But, yeah.
All right, so under America is all of these other options. You basically just find the place that's closest to your actual location. And for me, that would be Los Angeles. I can click it. And then it's going to use the time zone specific for the Los Angeles area, which is accurate for me as well. The date format, you have the ability to change that should you be in an area that it makes more sense to show it in some other format. You can just simply tick the one that's right for you. Same thing with the time format. You can customize that, and then you can even change the day that the week starts on. By default, it's Monday. And when you're done, you click Save Changes. This is one of those that you need to make sure that you do click the button. Otherwise, your settings will not be saved. Next, writing. From the top, by default, the size of the post box is 20 lines long. If you want the post box basically to grow in height, you can increase this value. So you could change the value to 30, and the post box would then be basically taller for everyone who logs in. This is a global setting. Just leave it at the default. You can choose to convert things, like these smiley faces, immediately to emoticon graphics if you want, or you can turn that off. It's entirely up to you. You can choose to show, basically make WordPress try to correct improperly formatted XHTML. By default, this is off. I wouldn't recommend that you do this. It's better that you just, if you input HTML at all into your post, that you just do it properly, as opposed to letting it try to do it on the fly, because it's not a perfect machine. This is where we talked about before the default post category. So if you forget to assign a post to a category, it will be assigned to whatever you select here. So whatever your available categories are will populate in the drop-down. And this is why I changed uncategorized to general. If I forget to select a post category for post content, it will be put into the general category. Of course, yours does not have to say general. It could say, something that was more SEO friendly for your application, but maybe was a more general name. Maybe it could be, if we're talking about, again, the cars site, it could be just classic cars or something like that. The default post format, we haven't really talked about post formats yet, but depending upon your theme, you may have multiple post formats, and I'm not going to get into that right this minute, but by default, it's standard. Many themes do not have post formats or more post formats available than standard, so typically you're not going to want to touch this. The default link category, similar to posts, whatever link categories you've created become available in the drop-down, and you basically set a default category such that if you create a new link in the links section, it will automatically be assigned to that particular link category. Press this. Press this is something I'm just going to tell you quickly about. I'm not going to show it to you. It's something that I don't use, but you can basically drag this to your browser's bookmark area, and once it's there, this is basically for bloggers that write content about other people's content. So you could visit a page, let's say you visited yahoo.com, and you wanted to write content on a particular piece of content that they wrote about. You could click or select the press this option from your bookmark area, and it would allow you to basically grab some content from their site that you could bring over and basically comment about on your own. This is more for pure bloggers, not for people using WordPress to build websites. Post via email and remote publishing. These are things that maybe Jerry will want to say something about. I don't ever use posts via email or remote publishing whatsoever. If I ever am making a post either for myself or on behalf of a client, I'm always actually logging into WordPress in order to facilitate that. But you should note that it is possible from a technical standpoint to actually set up a mail server with the appropriate information and actually make posts via email. So you can send an email to a particular address provided all of the information is set up correctly, and it'll actually take that information and post it directly to your site. Same thing with remote publishing. You can do the same thing through like RSS type stuff. Jerry?
Yes, some third-party post systems or mobile apps might need to use some of this. It can also be considered a possible security risk because if anyone can figure out, you know, your usernames, passwords, or whatever, or if you accidentally give them too much capabilities, they're allowed to do automated posts that are actually going to go live. So as soon as they, you know, as soon as somebody emails to that email address, you know, somebody, if was logging an example, as soon as it gets an email, it posts it. So it's not always a great idea to leave on unless you really need it. And your apps will tell you if they need it or not. So I would just leave it off by default.
Yeah. I've never used either the post via email or remote publishing area. Now, one thing down here says update services, and it says WordPress is not notifying any update services because of your site's privacy settings. I do want to show this, so let's go. We can click it either from this link or from settings privacy. Temporarily, I'm going to go to privacy settings here. We'll come back to this page. Remember that under privacy, we currently have the site visibility to ask search engines not to index. I'm going to turn that to allow. Click Save Changes, and we'll come back to the settings that we were at. Come back to the bottom. Now under Update Services, because the privacy is turned back on, you'll notice that there is a URL here. The URL goes to a site over at Ping-O-Matic. Ping-O-Matic is basically a ping facility. It's a site that's used for pinging. And what you need to know about pinging basically is just electronic notification from one site to another. And what happens in the back end, one of the cool things about WordPress is each time you publish new content, if you have an update service listed in this area, and you can add multiples. If there are other ping sites that you like to use, you can add them one line at a time. What will happen dynamically as you publish the post, it will automatically send an electronic notification or a ping over to this URL. What happens on their end is that they then send their search engine spiders back to your site to basically crawl your new post content to be indexed through the variety of sites that they update. Ping-O-Matic actually will update multiple locations. It's not just one. It's actually a multitude of locations at the same time. So if you want to go check it out, you can put in pingomatic.com and go check out their service over there. But This is the default one that is populated by WordPress, and it works just fine, but some people do like the ability to add basically multiple ping locations. Yeah, Jerry.
People are asking, does it happen with just posts, or does it also happen with pages or other updates?
I believe, you know what? I believe it's just posts.
Right, it's just posts because posts are considered dynamic content or updates, where pages are more static content. So it's not something that's like being updated. It's not your daily new page.
Yeah, I guess the indicator is right there. It says when you publish a new post. So it is specific to posts, not to pages. So, but anyway, it's a good way to get their search engine spiders to come back and crawl your site. And as a result of this, quite frequently you'll see the Google spider, and from Yahoo and Bing, they'll come crawl and index your new content as well. So it's just a dynamic way that allows you to get a little bit more search engine exposure. I'll go back to privacy and set this back to off now that I've shown you that. The next one down is reading. Currently, we have a front page that is displaying posts, basically set up like a blog. If we want to set up a website where a page that is shown on the front is basically static, necessarily doesn't change every time you make a new post, we can set that functionality here. And we can't do that at the moment because I haven't set this up. So we'll go backwards and set this up. I see that we're 5 minutes over. I'm probably going to run probably 5 more minutes before we finish this section. So actually, I'm going to finish out settings, whatever time that takes, and then we'll probably just add the time for the next break to come back just a little bit late. So here's what we're going to do. We'll set up a front page and a post page and show you how those work, but we want to talk about the rest of this first. So blog pages will show at most 10 posts. So here's what that means. If we jump back over to our front page of our site that's currently set up in blog mode, we have 2 posts. Because we have it currently set to 10, as soon as we make the 11th post, it's going to create a second page. Basically, there's going to be a second page of posts as opposed to adding the 11th to this one long page. You have the ability to change that value here. So if you only wanted it to show 5 posts before it created the new page, you would set that to 5. Syndication feeds, this goes back to RSS again. How many different basically post listings do you want your syndication feed to show? If you leave it by default, it's going to show 10. So your last 10 posts will show in your RSS feed, or you can change that either up or down, unless you have a good reason to. 10, the default is probably a good reason, good value to leave it at. For each article, it says in the feed, again, talking about the RSS feed, do you want to show the full text, basically the full article in your feed, or do you want to show just a summary? For what I do, I really don't care all that much about RSS at all, but just so you know, there's some pros and cons. If you leave the full text, it's more convenient for your people that read via RSS because, of course, they can read your full content right there in their RSS reader. If you create it as a summary, it's going to give them basically an excerpt, and it's going to tell them to basically come back to visit your site for the full content, which is better for you, the site owner, in that you can bring them back more often to your actual site, but it's a little more frustrating for people that read via RSS. So if you have hardcore RSS readers, they might not appreciate just the summary. It's entirely up to you. Jerry, you use RSS?
Yeah, so I'm actually use Google Reader a lot, and if they only give me summaries, I delete them, and then I usually end up never ever seeing that site ever again. It just goes off my radar.
So there you go.
That's now again, if you're having a business site that's not posting updates, this doesn't really matter because you're mainly going to be doing pages. RSS only shows posts. It does not show pages.
Okay. Encoding for pages and feeds. This setting again was the one that we defined in the WP config file. Again, unless you have a really good reason, you just leave it at UTF-8. So we're going to come back to this page here in just a second, but what we need to do is we need to create a new page and a new post page so I can show you how these work. So let's do that. Let's go over to posts and then add new. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a particular name, and it could be whatever you want. You could name it blog, you could name it news, you could name it latest news, you can name it updates. It's entirely up to you. For ease of this, I'm just going to name it blog. I'm going to leave it completely devoid of content. I'm not going to add any content to this page whatsoever. I'm not going to do anything else whatsoever. I'm simply going to click publish. So we've basically published an entirely empty post with a blog title of just the word blog. Next, I'm going to go to pages and add new. And I'm going to name this one. This could be named, again, anything that you want. Could be named home, since it's going to become the home page. It could be named welcome. It doesn't really matter what you name it. It's entirely up to you. Again, for ease, I'm just going to name it home. I'm going to leave it completely free of content. I'm not going to set anything else, and I'm going to click publish. So now we've created a new page named home and a new post named blog. If we go back to settings and then reading, we can now change the way that WordPress is set up. This is basically what you do if you want to set up something that looks more like a website and less like a blog. Again, if we go back to the home page, right now we have posts showing on the home page. Again, if you look at just the main top level domain name, on the home page we have blog posts. Once we switch it, you're going to see that change. So what we're going to do, instead of show latest posts on the front page, we're going to tick the radio button that says a static page, and then we have selections to make. What page do we want to show from the front page? Well, whatever pages you currently have created, you have the ability to select from. Right now, I'm going to select it just as home. Now, in the future, obviously, you'd want to create content for that home page. Really, the only page that you need to be blank is posts. I should have made that mention. The post page you select as, oops, I take that back. I should have created it as a post, as a page, not a post. I'm surprised Jerry didn't smack me on that one. Let's see here. I shouldn't have created a post named blog. I should have created a blank page named blog. I apologize.
Yeah, Al told me, and and I didn't get what he was saying, because he just said pages, and I'm like, thanks, Al. I'm sorry that I.
Thanks, Al. You're on top of it, Al. All right, so I created a blank page named blog. Apologize for that. We're going to go back and update the home page too, just so you can see a little bit there. So this would be where the homepage content would go. We would go in this editor here, and we'll go back to settings and reading now that my brain is fully kicked in. What happened? Okay, so we'll click a static page now. We'll select home for the front page, and we'll select blog for the post page. And with that done, I can select Save Changes. Once that's been saved, you see the notification at the top. We can go back to the site and refresh, and we'll see that this content changes. So now what we have is we have home, and there's the content that would be shown for the home, and that's it. Now we have a new page named blog, and if we go to it will now be populated with the content that was previously shown on the home page, including my wonderful empty blog post. So that gives you some idea in regards to how basically you can change the architecture really fast and easily to show content more similar to a website as opposed to a blog. One of the things, obviously, you look at the content on the home page, immediately you see the comments ability, which of course, looks really, really strange. And if you go back to Pages and go to All, and then I go to Edit the home page, we'll see where we can actually turn that off. Here brings up another thing real quick. At the moment, I don't see the option that I need. I talked about screen options before and that they were dependent upon which page you're on. So you need to click screen options first. And I want to see discussions and comments. And if you want to see all of the values, you can just tick all of the boxes and you'll see everything that's available to you. Now that I've done that, I can scroll down and I can see under discussion, currently for the home page, we're allowing comments and allowing trackbacks and pingbacks, which I don't want. So I'm simply going to uncheck both of those. And then I'm going to click the update button to update. Remember that whenever you're on a post editing page or a page editing page, you always have to click a button to update content. It doesn't do it dynamically like some other things do. All right, now I'll update this. Oops, we'll go back to the home page. And we'll no longer see that big ugly comment box that would give us the ability to add comment to homepage text, which would be weird. Also, I'll point out real quickly this edit feature. This edit feature is only showing up because I'm logged in with the ability, I'm logged into this WordPress site and have the ability to edit things. The actual visitor to this site would not see this option. This is only for me as a logged in user. Of course, what content outputs to the theme is theme dependent. You can, turn off the page title from showing up, etc. I know this is pretty ugly to look at, but I hope you just kind of get the idea in terms of the ability to force static content to the front page and the ability to then show blog post content on a page specific for it. All right, back to the editor we go. Next was discussion. This is where you basically control what kind of discussion or commenting you want to allow on your site. If you have a blog, you probably do want to allow discussion or basically allow the public to be able to leave comments on your site. If you're running more of a business website, you may determine that you want to turn these off altogether. Comments, while cool, can also be a big source of frustration because of comment spam, people wanting to try to leave their links to their Viagra properties, etc., on your site. And it causes a lot more work than anyone would like in terms of these comment spam individuals. So if you're on a website, if you're running a website that doesn't require comments, you may want to turn that off altogether, and that's this option down here. If you turn this off altogether, basically no longer will someone have the ability to post comments, except if you look down here, it says these settings may be overridden for individual articles. So the settings inside of this area, WordPress is quite smart. Even if you leave this on, allow people to post comments, you just saw just a second ago for the home page, we turned it off. So even globally, while it's available globally, I turned it off on a specific page. And you can do the exact opposite. You can turn it off globally and then turn it on only on specific pages. So you're never stuck by either one of these two settings. You still have the ability to override them when you're creating content. Same thing goes for link notifications. Basically, again, pingbacks and trackbacks. If you're creating blog type content, you probably want to leave this live. If you're creating a website specifically just to deliver your business content, you'll want to turn this off. Turning both of these off basically is going to thwart comment spam and trackback spam altogether, which is a great thing. It's about the only way that you can do it and feel confident that it's going to work. There are plugins like Akismet and others that try to reduce the amount of comment spam, but none of them are perfect. So if you're allowing comments on your site at all, even using a comment spam type plugin, just expect that you're going to get some amount of comment and trackback spam, and you're going to have to go in and clean that up on some type of a basis. Yeah, Jerry.
Just wanted to stress that this is for new posts and pages and done after new articles done after the setting is changed. It doesn't go back and change the existing ones.
Brilliant. Yeah, I forgot to include that. So yeah, if you're changing the settings on a site that's been live, say, for 6 months, and for 6 months you had commenting open, and there's 100 comments left on your site, changing this setting is not going to dump all of your comments. They will leave them intact. It will just stop the new ability to comment. Now, you don't have to go, turn all these off. I'm not saying that that's the way to always do it. Attempt to notify any blogs linked to from the article. This is basically your ability to basically send pingbacks and trackbacks from your site. So that's what that is. But by default, these were both checked, and if you leave them that way, that's entirely fine. It's up to you. There's some other settings. The first says that the comment author must fill out their name and email. I would always leave this checked if you're going to allow commenting. Don't just allow them to make comments anonymously. You're just opening yourself up for huge spam issues. It says down here, users must be registered and logged in. This only makes sense if you have the settings set on the other page where you're basically allowing your users to actually register to your site, which is something that I don't recommend. You can obviously you can also automatically close comments on articles that are older than a specific amount of days. So maybe you only want to leave comments open for the first 7 days or something, and then you send an email to your list to talk about the new post, and they come and they leave comments. As soon as it gets to this particular value, it then closes comments on that particular post. Enable threaded or nested comments. This is only available if this will only work basically if the theme supports it. But enable threaded or nested comments is what we talked about when I talked about comments on the comments page, and that is the ability to reply to someone's comment and have your reply show up right underneath the original comment, which is kind of a cool thing. It makes the conversation of comments a little bit better. So if you are using comments, you might want to keep that enabled. Break comments into pages with 50 top level comments per page, and the either last or first page displayed by default. This is kind of similar to where we talked about how many blog posts can show up on a page. This is going to allow you the ability to say how many comments do you want it to show on one page before it breaks it into a new page. So if you want to control that, you can say, no, I want 30. After 30 comments, it drops it to another page. And then what do you want to show by default, the last or the first page of comments by default? So you can control both of those there. And then the comments should be displayed with either the older or the newer comments on the top. Typically, I guess by default it's set to newer. I think most sites typically have it as the older, the newer at the top of the page, pushing the older comments down. But actually, no, I guess it is the older with the newest coming lower. This is entirely up to you, though, how you want to control it, whether you want the newer comments to stay at the top and force the older down, or vice versa. As far as you, the admin, or whoever is the admin of the site, you can be emailed when anyone posts a comment. If you leave this checked, basically every new comment is going to generate an email to the email listed for the admin in the general settings area. This, of course, is going to, if you have comments open, just fill your email inbox like crazy. Or you can only choose to have a comment or an email sent to you whenever a comment is held in moderation. Well, that then speaks to, well, how does a comment get moderated? And that's the next section. So you can determine that the administrator must always approve a comment. It's another way to reduce comment spam if every new comment has to be approved before it goes live. That then is both a blessing and a curse. The good thing is you're not likely to have much comment spam go live on your site. the curse basically is that you're going to have a whole lot more workload in terms of having to always approve comments. Most people leave the second one ticked, which is that the comment author must have a previously approved comment. Basically, you can think of it this way, that if you've already previously approved a comment, basically their first, the likelihood is they'll probably leave a decent comment their second time. It's not always true, but that's the thinking behind it. So if you leave it checked this way, the very first time a new user makes a comment on your site, you're going to get an email that says the comment is held for moderation, and you're going to have to moderate the comment, basically log into WordPress and either approve it or unapprove it, label it as spam, etc. If you approve it, then the next time that same comment author makes the post, it will automatically go live without your involvement. Next two boxes down here, comment moderation. Even if these other values aren't set, it says to hold a comment in the queue, basically for moderation, if it contains 2 or more links. So a lot of spammers like to send, obviously, links to properties because they're link building or trying to generate traffic, etc. And it says it's a common characteristic of comment spam. So if they leave 1 link in a comment, everything's fine for this value. If they leave 2 links, it automatically moves it into comment moderation, even if they've had a previously approved comment. So that's entirely up to you. If you select it as 1 link, that basically will say if they leave any link whatsoever, if they leave more than just a text statement back to you, to put it into moderation. That's a little more stringent. Again, it's entirely up to you depending upon what makes sense for your situation. Down here, you can actually put in a bunch of words that trip up for comments. So when a comment contains any one of these words in the content, name, URL, email, or IP address, it will be held in the moderation queue. It says 1 word or IP basically per line. So if you were to put Viagra and other words that you wanted to filter out, you can put them 1 per line, or a name or a URL or email, etc. And if any of those conditions were met, it would automatically trip it up and put it into comment moderation. Same thing at the very bottom, comment blacklist, just a little bit different. Same thing in regards to the content that you put in here, but instead of it just being held into moderation, it automatically marks it as spam. So that's the difference between those two. And we're almost done with this page. Avatars. So, yeah, Jerry, you want to say something?
Somebody asked about comments. If you're going to get them moderated and it mails to you, and if you use the same email address on a bunch of sites, how do you know? And the subject line actually will tell you what site it's coming from. It'll be in brackets. So just there.
Perfect. Down here lower, it talks about avatars. WordPress works with the service provided over at Gravatar. I'm pretty sure it's gravatar.com. So if you want your own Gravatar image to show up, you have to have a Gravatar account, which is free. You simply just go to gravatar.com and create an account. Your account, you'll have to upload an image. Your account is basically attached to an email address. That's how it knows to pull a particular image. So if you go basically leave a comment on either your own site or someone else's site, if you're logged in as the administrator, so long as the email that you've used for your admin account correspond with the account that you created over at Gravatar, it will pull your image into the theme, provided that the theme supports Gravatars. Not all do. Same will go for your visitors. So if your visitors have a Gravatar account attached to the email address that they're using when they post, it will pull their image and display it on your theme as well. So you can either choose to show them or not. So even if the theme is set up to do it, you can turn them off. If you decide to show them, you can set basically a rating. This, of course, is is dependent upon the user at Gravatar. So when you set up your account over at Gravatar, you actually tell Gravatar what rating your icon or your image is suitable for. So if they say that their image is a G-rated image and you have this set to G-rated, then their image will come across. Of course, if they are using an X-rated image and calling it a G-rated image over at Gravatar, it will display on your site because they're basically trying to trick you. They may get caught over at Gravatar, but at least while that connection is set up that way, that's basically what it's using. It doesn't have some high-tech way where it scans the image and tries to figure out what it thinks is the rating. It's basically set up or connected to the Gravatar account that's posting. And you can set that up to whichever rating is suitable for you. And lastly, I'll say this, and then I'll let Jerry speak, is if users make a post, if you're showing avatars and users make a post and they don't have a Gravatar account, you're basically telling it what to do. Do you want it to show this Mystery Man image? Do you want it to show basically nothing? Do you want it to show just the Gravatar logo? Or do you want it to show some type of just one of these wacky images that are just automatically kind of generated on the fly? By default, it's set to Mystery Man. And then once you're done, you click Save Changes to save your changes. Yeah, Jerry.
Regarding Gravatar, if you choose, like, let's say R-rated, and the person only has a G-rated, it'll show the G-rated. It's that level, or in this case, above.
Right.
So if you choose PG and they only have a G, it will show the G. It won't go blank. Their email address is encrypted, so just by somebody looking at the Gravatar or looking at the URL, they cannot find the email address out. Gravatar is used on thousands, if not millions, of WordPress blogs. The other ones are generated based on their email address. So your email address. So once you get a monster ID look on one site, if you use the same email address on another site, you see that. And you can extend this if you really want to get into it.
So that's basically it about avatars and Gravatars. I was just about to say something, and I think I lost it. Oh, there it is. In terms of your account over at Gravatar, I've heard some people in recent training kind of misspeak. Just know that through Gravatar, you can actually set up one image or one icon, one representation, one avatar, basically, to multiple email accounts. I don't know if there's a finite limit. I didn't check on that, but I know for myself, I have several emails listed attached to the same Gravatar image. So if I go post on one site using email address number 1, it pulls that image. If I go over to some other site and I use email address number 2, it's also attached to that same account, so it'll pull that same image. It's just something that you can think about. If you use multiple email accounts, you can set it up inside of your Gravatar account to be attached to multiple emails. Media. So media settings, again, media is much more than images, but primarily when we think of it, we probably primarily think of it as images, but it can be videos, PDFs, audios, etc. This is going to give you some of the default sizes. The thumbnail size by default is going to be a square image, 150 pixels by 150 pixels. Unless you have a reason to change it, I'd leave it as is. By default, it's going to crop the thumbnail to the exact dimensions. So it's going to determine what part of the image it wants to take. If the image that you're uploading is bigger than this, and it's basically going to make a thumbnail that's cropped to 150 by 150. It can be overridden in the image editor, but as far as individually for a particular image, but that's basically what it does. By default, it basically cuts out a portion that's 150 by 150 to create the thumbnail. If you didn't already know, WordPress dynamically is going to create multiple sizes of an image when you upload it once. So when we went through the upload process before, we uploaded one image, and it actually is going to have created possibly I think 4, but it's showing 3 here. So it creates the thumbnail. It shows it's going to create a medium-sized image and a large-sized image, depending upon the size of the image that you upload. So if you upload an image that's 300 by 300, obviously it'll create the medium size and it'll create the thumbnail. It won't create the large. If you upload a really large image, it's going to create the large, a medium, and a thumbnail size. Yeah, Jerry.
The fourth one is the original upload.
Okay, I know there's a fourth setting in there somewhere. I see it all the time when I add images to posts.
Yes. And for the thumbnail size, it takes the shortest size and makes it 150, and then it crops the other size to 150. So you can end up either losing your height or your width, depending on which the shorter size was. Where on medium size and large size, it makes it so that no size is bigger than 300 or 1024, but it doesn't crop the other size. It keeps the same height to width dimensions.
Gotcha. The next under embeds, it says auto embeds. When possible, embed the media content from a URL directly onto the page. If you leave this ticked, what I will show you here in the next section is basically the ability to just drop a YouTube URL. Also, you can do the same thing from Flickr and other areas, and it'll immediately embed the attached media from the URL into your post. If you untick this, then that no longer works, and you have to embed differently, meaning you have to go grab the actual HTML or the iframe code and input it into the post field via the HTML box. But if you use the auto embeds or leave this ticked, you can actually just drop the YouTube URL into your post and it'll automatically show that particular video. The maximum embed size, by default, you'll see that this value is left blank, and unless you have a good reason to, I would recommend that you leave it blank. If you leave the width value blank, basically it will fill the container area for your site with the embed. So let's say, for example, your theme you're using has a content area width of 500 pixels. When you drop the URL from YouTube into that area, it will create the YouTube player to be 500 pixels in width. If you update or change the theme to one that now has a content area of 640, it will now basically cause that player to grow and fill that width to 640. So it's a little more flexible to leave this set blank. If you set a hard value, if you were to set 500 pixels, then even when you change the theme to an area that had a theme with a content area that was wider, it would remain fixed at 500 pixels. So unless you have a good reason to, I'd recommend that you leave the embed width blank. Uploading files. Store uploads in this folder. You can see by default, it uploads it into wp-content/uploads. Uploads it into the uploads directory that lives inside of the wp-content directory. If you want to change this, you basically can change the value. So you could change this to some other value, and it would store it in the new directory name as opposed to uploads. It's entirely up to you. Some people will say that that's a good idea for security, but in my opinion, it's so easily found out as far as where that directory is. It just becomes something that I just don't mess with. And then full URL path to files. It says configuring this is optional. By default, it should be left blank. I have never used this value at all. I guess you could put in a very full URL path to the actual file structure as opposed to this relative path, which is here, wp-content/uploads. If you wanted to move it, I suppose from a technical standpoint, maybe you could even move this off server. Is that available, Jerry? Could you
Well, what it would
host
do
it
is
on S3?
Well, it would make the links look like they're off server, but the content isn't off server. There's some technical stuff you could do by pushing it to another domain that's mapped and things like that. 99.9% of the time, leave both of these blank. If you know what you're doing, you know what to put here, and it's mainly like using S3 or using another server that's automatically mirroring your image uploads, or things like that. But you're typically if you're gonna do S3, which is Amazon Web Services Simple Storage System, S3, you're probably going to use a plugin that uploads to S3, because this does not do any uploads. It just basically configures the URLs.
Okay. And then lastly, you saw when we uploaded the image how it organized it. It put it into the uploads folder, and then downline of that, it actually put it into a year and then a month folder. If you want that structure, you simply leave this ticked, and if you don't, if you want it just shoved straight into the uploads folder, if you want everything just shoved straight into the uploads folder, you can untick this. My only word of caution if you untick this is leaving it ticked is a little bit safer, only because let's say you forget or you forgot that you uploaded a file named, I don't know, julie.jpg, and next month, if Julie was your friend or your daughter or something, and next month you decided to upload another picture of Julie, if it's named the same, you can have conflicts of it trying to upload into the same directory. But if it's broken down into the month and the year, that would only become a conflict if you were uploading the file, the same exact file name twice in the same month year. If you uploaded it in the next month, it would put it in 2012/7, and there would no longer be a conflict with image paths. So.
It'll automatically rename Julie to like Julie1.jpg, I think.
Okay.
So then you start getting confused on which is which. The advantage if you're doing a dynamic blog that's updating and content's updating, it's nice to have everything put in folders so you know when you uploaded it and when you referenced it. But if you're doing a more static or almost like an evergreen type of blog that you don't want dates everywhere, I usually uncheck this. So if I have a client that has more of a catalog site, it's just a brochureware kind of site, I uncheck this so there's no date stamp sitting out there that's, in people's faces. So it just matters of what your objective is.
Okay, that's good knowledge. So he said out there in someone's faces, most people are not going to trip across that date. It's not like WordPress is automatically going to output this to the public. It can be easily seen if you're viewing images, but it's not like the regular user is never going to trip across the date path.
In a typical WordPress theme, you're not going to see it. In a typical WordPress site, you're not going to see it. There are some photo plugins that show it. There are some, and somebody right-clicks on it and looks at it. And if you're getting nerdy and hunting for that stuff. So, but yeah, most of the time you won't see it even if it's there.
All right, we have two more, and then we're going to finish this section and take a break. So settings privacy, we've already been to, so this is a quick thing. Again, there's just two settings. Either you do or do not want to basically tell the search engines that you're interested in having your content indexed at that particular time. So my suggestion is that you turn it off while you're working on a site, or especially if you're basically working on a client site on a development domain. Basically turn off the search engines while you're doing your development work, and then once the site is where it's supposed to be and it's ready for human visitors, to make sure that you turn that back on. Lastly is the permalink structure, everybody's favorite topic. By default, this is the permalink structure. So each new post that we create, or a piece of content rather, is going to be labeled with something that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to humans. You can see this sample is $P equals 123. If we go to our real site right now and we go visit one of the actual specific posts, I haven't really talked about that, but your post is going to be put to the main page, and it's also going to have a specific individual page created for it by WordPress dynamically as well. So if I click on live post, it will take us to the actual specific page just for this post, which you can see where the comment facility is showing up on this page as opposed to on the front side of the blog. If we go look up here in the URL structure, you'll see this says it's $p=4. Well, $p=4 is what they refer to as an ugly permalink structure. It's not descriptive for human beings. It's not descriptive for search engines. The only thing that it's doing for WordPress is just making it unique, which of course URLs need to be. So it's keeping a dynamic URL structure such that each URL that's created is unique. However, at the same time, it's not good for humans and it's not good for search engines. At least it can be improved. So permalinks are something that you're going to want to look at. There is, however, a word of caution before we change this. Typically speaking, you'll hear someone talk in training that, hey, it's important that you update your permalink structure to something that's more SEO friendly. And I agree. The problem is that if that's all the information that you've been given, you might go change the permalink structure on, a 5-year-old site that has, 500 pages indexed and is getting tons of traffic. If you go change the permalink structure, what's going to happen is, for a time, all of the search engine, the indexed pages, the pages that are indexed in the search engine, they're going to all break. They're all going to lead to 404 error page. Yeah, Jerry?
Unless it was set for default before you changed it.
Unless it was set for default. So
if you had day and name set
right,
for all your pages,
and
then somebody says, no, that's really not the best way to do it. Your best way is to use post name so you get your keyword and your SEO keywords in there. Changing from day to name to post name ends up breaking the site. The links just stop working and things like that. If you're on default and change it, it actually still works. WordPress is smart enough to know how to go from default to your new structure. But you can't go from an alternate structure to an alternate structure without breaking everything.
Awesome. So I got to learn something live right along with you because I honestly didn't know that. I thought every single change broke the URL path. And now,
internally it still knows the page name because it's used in a lot of things like widgets and other stuff that we'll be talking about in a later session.
Okay, so I guess the answer then is, and I haven't tried this live, but I trust Jerry implicitly. So if you're going from default to a custom structure, I would set it that way and test and make sure that that's true. Go click on one of your search engine listings and make sure that it still completes the path. And if it does, great. If it doesn't, then I would go right back to the setting that you were at, and then think about basically using a redirect plugin to create that process. Typically, for me in the past, basically if we're going to update permalinks on a site that was already live, in addition to making the update change, we would install a 301 redirect plugin and make sure that we had set up a permanent redirect structure such that the old link structures definitely moved right back to the new. So,
one last thing, backup. Before changing permalink structure, backup. Because, yeah, backup.
Backups are good. We'll get into that in the advanced setting, in the advanced session. We'll talk a little bit about backups in WordPress security later on, but we'll be talking a lot more about backups in the advanced session. So if you do want to change the permalink structure, there's a lot of opportunities to do that, and you'll see, just visually how WordPress would go about changing them. So you can see that they can add, the year, the month, the day, and then lastly, it'll pull the actual page or post title. And you can use the day and name or the month and name or numeric stuff, all sorts of options. For me, I just simply use the post name structure, which is here. And when I click this, you'll see that it's going to populate a little special token basically in this custom structure field. So if I tick post name, you'll see that it puts / %, post name, %, / in the box. So if I want to update to this, I simply click Save Changes. And if we go back to our site now where we were at $p=4, when we refresh, we now see that it's livetrainingurl.info/live-post, and it got live post from the actual post title, which is being outputted right here onto the page. So that's a little bit about permalinks and post structures. I've never gotten into changing custom structures for category and tag URLs, but that is available to you as well by default. If WordPress outputs the if it's a category URL, basically it outputs the name of the category. Typically it would use category here, and then it would output the specific category. What they're basically saying is if you wanted to use the word topics instead of category, you can enter that information here. So if you wanted to use topics, you would enter that information right there. The same thing with tags. If you don't want to use the word tags, you want to use something else. Keywords, you could type in that there, and it would change basically the URL structure to your category pages and your tag pages. So I think that's pretty much it. So that's it for the yes.
Just a quick thing. Somebody asked, why is custom structure changed when you clicked on post name? WordPress by default puts the type into custom structure so that it's a base and you can actually edit it. You can then go select custom structure and edit from there. But it's showing you what it's using. It's showing you the short codes that are the tags that are available. There are more tags that are available from a link, but I use post name like 99% of the time. So that's why that is going. And somebody asks, what's the hoopla about saying numerical identifier post name helps with faster output? I have no idea. Using the numerical number requires one less database lookup thing. I'm kind of blank on the tech talk. And I'm thinking millisecond change, so I use post name because I find them easier to use. So.
Yeah, it's like anything else. There's pros and cons to just about everything, especially when we get into security. The phrase used inside of security training is basically good security is not convenient, and you'll find that that's definitely true. There are some things when we get into security that you'll have decisions to make. You'll understand the ramifications of your decision, and you'll be able to make a determination based on what makes sense for your own situation, as opposed just to being told, like a robot, do this, do that. So I'm not telling you that you need to change it to post name, but here's the reality. There may be some small benefit to using the default category in terms of the ability to build the URL faster, because like Jerry just said, maybe there's one less database call. But the reality is that it might be better in that regard, but it's worse for human visitors and it's worse for SEO. So you kind of just have to make the determination as opposed to which direction you want to go, and then you just have to stick by your guns and just go with it.
Somebody said, like, why can't you put category in your instead of just posting? You can do all sorts of stuff, what you think is best. I usually have enough keywords stuffed into the title that I don't need additional slashes and other things. Just depends on what you find works best for you.
Yeah, I'm the same. I use post name, but that doesn't mean that you have to. Use whatever makes sense for you. We're not trying to teach you how to read robots. We're just trying to teach you that there's options available. And like Jerry said, if you look at this particular page, you'll see that there's a number of tags available. If you click this link, it will take you to the specific codex page that will show you all of the specific permalink tags that are available to you, and you can make a determination as to what you want to use. My only suggestion to you is that specifically based on what Jerry just said. You don't want to get into a habit of where you're jumping around. So you make a determination, and then my recommendation is that you stick with it. Specifically, if you're going to one of these other ones, you know, if all of these others are going to break in the search engines, and that's been my experience, you don't want to be changing one and then use it for a month and then decide you want to change to something else, because you can dramatically see, you know, a loss of website traffic just basically disappear as all of your listings, well, basically going to take them to a 404 error page, but that's typically not good for visitor experience. Okay, inside of posts and then add new is your ability to add new posts, content. Again, remember that the information or the options that you see inside of your post editor are going to depend upon a couple of things. Number one, they're going to depend upon what you have activated through screen options. So you just saw that I clicked screen options. I have the ability to show or not show any one of these particular elements that are here by default. I can also turn this into a one-column layout as opposed to two, should you really want to do that. So that's the first option, and you'll see that now we have more information being shown here at the bottom. Additionally, some of these options are theme specific. So this format box here is being shown to me because the 2011 theme that's currently active does sport or does feature different post formats. What all these do, we simply don't have time to go into, and it really wouldn't matter because how they act is completely theme dependent. So even if I were to show you how each one of these act with the 2011 theme, if you use a different theme, even if it has the format box, they may act entirely different than what I would show you. So it's, again, just understand that not all themes sport different post feature or have different post formats available, and even if they do, how they treat them is unique to a particular theme. So I'm going to go ahead and just minimize that. We're going to work with just the standard theme post format. Underneath is categories, and this is going to show up. This is driven by WordPress unless you tell it not to. Same thing with tags. However, down here now in the featured image area, this is another theme specific option. So 2011 does feature or give you the option of showing a featured image. I'll probably show you what this does just because it's kind of interesting and something that you might even get a thought across to your own mind in regards to what you can do with your own themes in the future should you decide to create one or tweak one. But this, again, will not show up. If we activate a different theme that doesn't have the featured image facility, you're not going to see this particular option. The same thing is true in regards to plugins. Some plugins add unique and custom areas inside of the post editor. So later on when we're talking plugins and we talk about an SEO plugin, the SEO plugin is automatically going to add a unique particular editor area to the post editor area. So that being said, basically in a nutshell is this. The fact that we're looking at it this way does not necessarily mean that you're going to see it this way. It's going to be dependent upon the options that you've chosen in screen options. It's going to be specific to, I guess I should leave those on so we can kind of just quickly talk about them. It's going to be specific to the theme. It's going to be specific to what plugins you're running. And it's going to be specific to what options you do or do not have turned on in screen options. So there's lots of availability for you to see something different. Same thing in regards to, or not same thing, but just remember that you can do the same thing inside of here that you can do in the dashboard. So if you know, tags are something that you use a lot of and you want them up top, you can click and drag these around. Like I said, you can turn this into a one-column layout. You can basically customize it for your own application. So the first thing to note, obviously, each post or page needs a title. In terms of SEO, or for best SEO, it would behoove you to include the primary keyword phrase that you're trying to rank for, and also if you can get that keyword phrase earlier in your post title as opposed to at the end, that would benefit you as well. So if I was going to type something, if I was going to type something and then put in my keyword phrase for SEO benefit, it would really be better if you could reword this such that the keyword phrase was closer towards the left. And obviously, you know, adding new posts and pages, you can have the post title rather long. Just understand that it's also going to try to pull that into the URL. You do have the ability to edit and reduce the length of the URL by using this feature here. So if you wanted to basically cause it to be this, you could do that. I'm not saying that that's the best way to do it, but just understand that you can actually override the permalink structure such that you can create it to be custom based, not just always have to be stuck with something directly driven from the page or post title, if you didn't already know that. The visual editor, or the WordPress editor, is where you do most of the work in regards to adding content to WordPress. You'll notice that there are two tabs, visual and HTML mode. Most of you will probably be working in visual mode most of the time. This is where you simply just type text in as if you were just as if you were using an editor. Let's see, I pre-prepared some content. I just grabbed some lorem ipsum text from the web such that I wouldn't have to waste time typing. And you can simply just put your content in and publish it. The post editor works kind of similarly to the way a word processor kind of works. You notice right now I only have one line of icons. If I click the last icon in the group, the kitchen sink is what it's called, you'll see that I now get a second line of icons basically. So it's kind of the advanced version. You get just more ability to do things. You can do things similar to a word processor, like I can left click and drag, highlight a bit of text and cause it to be bold. You should know that by default, each one of these areas is being coded to be a paragraph. So unless you tell it otherwise, if you see this blank space between lines, the blank space that's basically here, and this one's kind of weird. These are basically being wrapped in paragraph tags. One of the frustrating things with WordPress is if I click the HTML mode, we're going to see that it does not, in HTML mode at this moment, it does not wrap the content here in the editor in the actual paragraph tags via HTML. I wish that it would, but unfortunately it doesn't. So you can paste HTML tags in the HTML mode. So just put an opening and closing paragraph tag, and if I go ahead and choose to publish this,
you're all hissy.
I'm hissy. I'm having a hissy fit.
Yes, if, you said you can wrap it in an open and closing paragraph tag, and then it went out.
Okay. So, okay. Maybe it's just you. You just need to pop on and say hello every once in a while and fix my audio, whatever's going on.
Hello, everyone. Goodbye.
All right. So if we go take a look at that particular post, and I'm hoping you can hear me. We'll go to the blog page since that's where it's at the moment. Okay. Didn't actually take me where I wanted to be. Okay, it's actually, okay. Something is funky with the way that just got put there.
I think the Hello World's got a date that you changed, and I think live post is sticky.
Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of strange. At one point, we had set the Hello World post to be sticky, but I thought I took that off. I don't know. Anyway, the new post is here, and you're seeing the new paragraph here at the bottom, and you're not seeing the HTML tag. So this has worked properly. What I wanted to point out basically is this. If you mistakenly put in your HTML when in visual mode, you're working basically in the wrong tab. You're going to see that it's going to output the paragraph HTML tags to your content. So if you ever run into that, you might want to go back and look at your post content and make sure that if you are using HTML tags at all, that you are doing that when in the HTML version of the editor. Yeah, Jerry.
I was going to have you ask you to switch to HTML without deleting it, so they can just see what happens. Because people ask me sometimes, why is there a bunch of semicolons and GTs and stuff like that in my text? So
switch to, I'm sorry.
Go to Visual and paste back your HTML encapsulated thing, and now switch back to the HTML mode, and you'll see the ampersand LT semicolon P, so it's changing those to less than and greater than symbols, not actual HTML wrappers. So that's all your HTML will end up looking like that when you switch to HTML mode, and that's how one way you can tell it's all corrupted.
Gotcha. Usually I know if I messed up because I go to the page and I view it and I see I got HTML tags. Doesn't happen all that often. I'm pretty careful, but if you do notice that, that's probably why, because you can only use or include HTML tags if you are working when the HTML tab or HTML editor is actually valid. So we're just going to quickly kind of go through most of these and just talk about some of your options when publishing. So I can obviously highlight text. I can cause it to be bold, italic. I can stripe through it. Those are straightforward enough. But I can also choose an HTML value. So I can format as an HTML paragraph, or if it was a street address, I could wrap it with address tags around it. If it was code or something that I wanted to show exactly as it was, I could go through pre-formatted. Obviously, all these different headings. When using headings, I would recommend that you don't use a heading 1, that you only use something less than heading 2 or less. It's more than just sizing differences. It's really what's referred to in SEO terms as semantics. So you're trying to semantically stay relevant to the search engines, basically telling the search engines via the heading tag what is your most important content to your least important in terms of headings is concerned. By default, most, not all, but by default, most themes are going to use a particular heading tag for the post title It could be an H1, it could be something else. And you might want to check that in your source code to know what your theme is using in terms of basically how it's styling or attacking that particular post or page title in terms of what it's calling it out in HTML. You really don't want a number of heading 1s on your page. It's confusing to the search engines in regards to what is more important on your page. So you might I'll just say heading text. In this case, I'll choose it to be heading 2. Now, here's something else to note. You'll see that it just became bold, and you can see that it's got a particular size to it. If I were to highlight this again and change it to a heading 3, you'll see that it's changed again. This time it's no longer bold, but you'll notice that it's all caps. It's probably small caps if I look at the CSS, but you notice it's all in capital letters, as opposed to when it was a heading 2, it was in title text mode where just the first letters of each word were capitalized. Some themes have a specific CSS style sheet for the editor, and so sometimes you'll hear the term used for this thing as a WYSIWYG editor. What you see is what you get, and that's quite frequently not the case. A lot of themes out there do not have a style sheet specific for the editor, so when altering these, I guess what I'm trying to say is the output inside of the editor can be very, very different than the output actually on the live theme. So that's just something to think about. This is not always what you see is what you get. Let's see. So that's basically how you select different pieces of text and cause it to be styled with a particular HTML tag, should that be something that you want to do. There's the ability to underline text. That's all pretty straightforward. I don't think I need to do that. There's the ability to color text. So if you wanted to color the first 2 words something else, say a red, you'd have the ability to do that, and you do see that the style sheet is picking that up and styling it as of red. However, here's one thing to note. If I go look at the HTML view, you'll see how it's doing that. It's basically using a span. So span style color equals this particular red, and it's wrapped that text in a span tag. You'll see the original text is wrapped in an H2. So basically, just understand that each time you do certain things, you're causing more code to be added to your content. Now, of course, sometimes this is definitely what you want to happen. Of course, styling content is a good thing to make your content easier to read and more visually interesting. But just understand that anytime that you do something additionally, if I were to select this bit of text and cause it to be bold, when we go back over to here to HTML, you can see it wrapped it in strong tags, and you'll see that right here. It's the opening strong tag and the closing strong tag. And each time that we go through this process, we are adding basically more HTML code to the page, and of course, the more that you do that, the larger the file size, etc. So you want to use all of this stuff in moderation. Don't go overkill typically, because it's not good for reading, and it's just going to add additional code to your content. Some of the other things is the ability for alignment. Now, by default, WordPress is aligned to the left, or the content is aligned to the left, which is why you see the right side of the content is kind of ragged. They call this in text terms ragged right. You can cause it to be centered. If I highlight this text and I choose this icon, I can center this bit of text. You can choose other things as well. Here's what I want to point out to you, though. This is something that's simple, but it is important to note, especially to bypass code bloat, to not add more code than is necessary. Right now, you see that this code or this text has been centered. If I go to HTML view, you'll see that it has added a inline bit of CSS, paragraph style equals text align center, and that's what it's using basically to facilitate that layout. Well, let's say that I've decided I don't want that to be centered anymore. I want it to be left. A lot of times what will happen is people will highlight the text and then they'll click on the left. And you'll see that it did in fact work. It is now left aligned. But let's look at something in the code real quick. You'll notice that this paragraph is left aligned as well, as is the first, but look at in HTML mode. In HTML mode, the very first paragraph has a paragraph text align left, whereas the second one doesn't. So what's happening is you're basically writing additional code to facilitate something that just doesn't need to be there. So rather than having done that, instead of gone from left to centered, what you do is you click on the same icon the second time. So, and here's the undo button. You'll see that I have it centered again. And so if we go look at it in HTML mode, you'll see paragraph text line equals center now. So rather than having clicked on the left, you can simply click on the selected icon, and it removes the styling, which basically brings it back to the left. And if we go look at HTML mode now, you notice that we got rid of the paragraph. We still have the span class for the color, but that paragraph styling is gone. So just one thing to think about when you're creating your content. Let's see. I guess another thing I should point out for speed's sake, anytime that you have a block of text like this together, WordPress already knows it's a paragraph. So if you just click anywhere in the paragraph, you can still facilitate the same thing. So you'll notice that it's just centered the entire segment. So even though I initially showed you by clicking and dragging, you don't have to do that. You can actually just click and it'll activate that particular paragraph, and you'll be able to change those type of editing things just by simply just clicking in it. So same thing with left. Of course, you can align right, and then the other one on the second row is justify. So if I were to activate this, I could choose justify, and you'll see that it basically stretches to make the right side of the content basically flush. So it's flush on the left and flush on the right, or what's referred to as justified text. It can look kind of cool. If we go look at the content live on the blog, you'll see that the first paragraph is aligned right. The only thing to note is that because it's trying to be flush left and flush right, it starts to mess with the spacing. You'll notice that there's a whole lot of space between these two words, extra space after this period. There's more spacing between these two words, and it can kind of get confusing for the visitor. Because you're allowing basically WordPress to stretch and add extra spacing where it really isn't properly defined. But that's entirely up to you. But that's how you basically justify text if you want to. And again, if you don't want to, you just click in it to activate it, and then uncheck the icon to put it back to regular flush left. Let's see here, links. You have the ability to create links, text links, either to other sites or to your own sites. So how this works is, now this time you actually do have to highlight the words, because it won't know. If I just simply click in this word here, it won't know which words I want to link. So if I wanted to link these two words right here, you simply highlight them. Until you do so, you'll see that they're grayed out, these link icons. When I highlight them, they become selectable. If I click on the first one, which is the ability to create a link, the second one basically removes the link. If I click on the first one, it'll bring up a new window. It says, where do you want the URL to go? So I don't know, we want it to go to Google. It's an offsite link. You have the ability to add a title, which again is like a tooltip. Good can be good for SEO. You can choose to open the link in a new tab or window, or just allow it to open in the same page, and then you choose to add link. So now you're seeing that that link is activated, and that is basically the example of linking offsite. If you want to change the text in the link, you can actually do that right here without having to reopen the editor. You can just simply click in it. You can add a new word, and it will stay as part of the link structure. If you want to get rid of it, you simply highlight the whole thing and then click the break link, and it will remove basically the link. If you want to link internally to other content on your site, it works very similar but just a little bit different. I highlight these, click link. On the bottom area, you'll see it says or link to existing content. So if you click on this, you'll get the ability to either say, oh, I want to link this to a particular post or page. If you have lots of content, you can actually search for content to find something that's relevant. Let's say that this thing was actually relevant for this particular post. Simply just click on it to activate it and then add link. And now this bit of text is now linked right over to the live post that is also on our site. So this is the way that you basically create internal links for your site. Next is the more or excerpt tag. Some themes will automatically show an excerpt or a small amount of text on the front page of the blog, only to show the full content on the full post page. Some will not. That's entirely up to you. But if you want to create your own more tag such that you basically break it and say that you have to click this link to go read more about it, simply just put your cursor where you want it, click this to insert the more tag, and you'll see this new area that's been inserted. And if I click update and we go view it, you're going to see that no longer are both paragraphs here. You now see a continued reading link that I can click, and it actually will take me to the full post page for the post where all the content lives, as well as the comment box in this case, since comments are active. And that's what the more tag is. Typically double clicking on it will activate it such that you can get rid of it. Of course, if anything ever frustrates you that way, you can go to HTML mode. It can be easier to find and remove stuff in HTML mode sometimes than it is through the visual editor. Just another tip there. You do have the ability to spell check your post content. Good idea. Next is the full screen mode. So, you know, we're already on a large screen, but if for some reason you wanted to have an even larger screen, you can simply tick this box and it'll open up in full screen mode, and you can go ahead and enter your content in this area, and you'll see that it gets rid of the toolbar after a while, and if you scroll back to the top, it reappears. You still have your main options, and you can exit full screen by clicking here and going back to the post editor. All right, let's see, where are we at left? These two clipboards basically will allow you to paste content into them either as plain text or if you're pasting from Word. So quite frequently you'll have clients give you, if you're working for clients, give you content in Microsoft Word. And if you paste content straight from Microsoft Word into the text editor, frequently you'll find that it brings all sorts of formatting garbage into the post that you didn't necessarily see when you copied from Word, but it can frequently stay there when you transfer the content. So you can click this option, paste your content straight from Word and then click Insert, and it will do its best job to remove the word formatting. Or this other option, you can paste as plain text, which is probably preferable to the two, because this typically does a better job of making sure that the formatting gets removed. Let's see. The remove formatting option, quite frankly, I don't think I've ever really even used this option. Have you used the remove formatting option, Jerry?
I've tried with not great luck. If you basically were to highlight that first paragraph and click remove formatting, it in theory should get rid of everything, but I don't always see it work. But hey, look, it kind of worked.
Okay, so it's supposed to remove formatting. Obviously, it didn't remove our URL. It's not seeing that as formatting, but it's seeing the other things like the coloration of text and probably some things. That's a good idea. I have to play with that. Insert special characters if you want to put in like a copyright symbol or anything special that has the availability to put in. You can select a custom character and insert it from this box here. Over here is the ability to increase or reduce the amount of indent, should you be indenting anything. And then I think the last thing I didn't really show is, I didn't show bullets or block quotes. Okay, so bulleted lists are easily created. You can create them a number of different ways. Let's see if I go underneath this. I'll just type in real quick. So I just entered a shift or an actual return, rather, an enter key after each one of these. And if I highlight the three of them and I click the bulleted area, you'll see that we get bullets. Now, it looks like we're going to get square bullets because that's what the style sheet is using. So if you want to overwrite it, you have to update your style sheet. But that'll give you an idea how to do it. Of course, go ahead.
You cut out when you're talking about square bullet points. When you said it looked like you got square bullet points.
Okay.
But it's up to the style sheet and the theme.
Yep. So there you go. So yeah, how this content's going to be styled obviously is attached to the theme style sheet. So it would appear that this standard bulleted item, this is an unordered list, meaning that it's not labeled numerically or alphabetically. It looks like by default it's going to show a square bullet as opposed to a circular disc, which is style sheet dependent. So if you wanted to overwrite that, you'd have to actually change it in the CSS. Again, you can click undo to undo it. And if you wanted to make that an ordered list, that's the second feature. Again, by default, the ordered list is being shown numerically. Through HTML, you can actually cause it to be different. You can actually cause it to show up ABC as opposed to 1, 2, 3. But you have to get into the code to do that sort of thing. And lastly, I guess I'll show you a block quote. If I were to highlight this bit of text and click the quotation marks, you'll see that it's basically added some space to the left. It's hard to see, but it's also added space to the right. It's styled the text a particular way, which is using italicized text as opposed to standard text. And this may be very close to the way it will really appear on the site, or it may not be. It may be treated completely differently on the live site. It's really just dependent upon the theme itself, and again, whether the theme has a special style sheet for the WordPress editor. And if you want to look at it in HTML view, you'll see that that particular bit of text, although it's hard to see, there's a block quote tag here and a closing block quote tag right here, and that is what is telling the WordPress editor to treat it or style it differently. If I click Update Now, and we refresh the page, we can go see it do its job on the live. And it actually looks very, very similar to the way it looked inside the editor. So I'm pretty certain that this 2011 theme has a specific style sheet specifically for the WordPress editor, where many do not. And that's pretty much a block code. I think we've covered most of the basic things. I think the next thing would be to probably just add some images and play with those, and then we can get on to, let's see. Actually, we need to mess around with at least the menus section before we get into themes. Yeah, Jerry.
Did you show the kitchen sink button?
Yeah.
Okay, I missed that. Just want to make sure that if the second line's missing, it's because the kitchen sink button needs to be clicked. Just so you know. And remember, this is a visual editor. It's not a WYSIWYG or what you see is what you get editor. The output is according to the theme design. So what you type here is not exactly what you're always going to see on the other side. Are you going to show insert media?
Yeah, I have some images ready, so we'll insert some images and play around with them for a minute. We'll talk a little bit about probably about custom menus. Actually, probably we'll play around with just some of the special features of this theme for just a minute, and then we're going to get into theming and what themes are and how they're built, etc. So it used to be through WordPress that there was actually multiple icons for what type of media you wanted to upload to a particular post. It's no longer the case. There's now basically just one upload feature because now you have the ability to add any type of media through it. So if I click on this, it'll bring up a pop-up box, and you'll see at the moment I have the ability to upload media from my computer, from a live image that's on, or from media that's on at a URL, or from the media library. Remember that we have uploaded one image in the past to the media library. So if I click on this, you'll see that this now becomes available to us. So any image that you upload, or any piece of media rather that you upload to the media library, is available to you when you make posts. So that's one thing to be cognizant of. And again, you do have the ability to search media too, which is cool. I rarely ever use the from URL option, typically because most of the time the content's coming straight from my own site. If I'm going to add something, I add it to the site first, and then we add it to the post. Or you can add it from your computer, and that's what we're going to do here. So again, you can drag files. If I wanted to minimize the screen and make it easy for me to drag files, I can do that, or I can just select. I'll just click select. So I have a number of images to upload. I think for now I'll probably just do, I don't know, 4. And here's a cool thing. You can actually upload multiples. I just hold down my control key, at least on my PC, and left click on each individually. You'll see I've activated or selected 4. I'm going to click open, and you'll see that very easily you can upload each one of the images without having to do it one at a time. And all 4 are ready. Once that's done, you have the ability to click the show button and customize them individually. Again, remember that I said that the title is going to be dynamically pulled from the image name itself. This is very rarely the case that you're going to want to leave it exactly as is, because this shows up as the tooltip above the image, and it just kind of looks weird. So I don't know what year this is, but it looks kind of like, I don't know, maybe a 70, so I'm going to guess. And give it a title that makes sense for the image and, of course, for your SEO. Again, I would always recommend that you add alt text and that you use intelligent alt text that's good for SEO as well. I very infrequently, go ahead.
And that's not intelligent alt text that he's using. Don't add alt text like that, but it's not what he means. I just know somebody would do that.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Use alt text that is specific for the image, similar to the title. A lot of times what I'll do, since you brought it up, I'll go backwards for just a second. A lot of times what I do for alt text to kind of make sure that the search engines don't think I'm trying to game their system, I'll add a word that's specific to the media type. So this could be image, photo, graphic, maybe it was an icon or a logo or something like that. So so maybe I would add image of 1970 Chevelle SS. Now, what you have to think about is, when will this information be used? The information for alt text will be used whenever one of two things either happens. Either A, the image for some reason can't be retrieved and it can't display, so instead of displaying the image, it's going to output the alt text. That's condition number one. Condition number two is you might actually have a visitor visiting your site using a screen reader. They might be disabled and they might not have, maybe they're not blind, but maybe their vision is poor. So they use a screen reader to basically, it reads the text to them. So what happens in terms of this image is it's going to look for the alt text and it's going to read them this particular text. So if you have defined it such that it says image or photo or something, it's going to be very semantic. It's going to make a whole lot of sense to them, the visitor, and that's basically what you're trying to do. The fact that it includes 1970 Chevelle SS just helps me a little bit for that particular keyword phrase, and if it happens to be right there in the title text, then all the better. The caption. The caption will actually be shown to the actual public. So I very infrequently, I don't very often use captions, but I do want to show you what they do. And again, with the description, the description basically shows on the attachment page if you are using such a thing. So what you will see basically is this. After you get down here, it's going to link the image somewhere. By default, it links it to what's called the file URL. So if you look at the URL path, it's basically linking the image back to the full size version of the image, which to me is a little bit strange. I don't want to, I guess if we do put in the medium-sized version and somebody clicks it, they're going to see the full-sized image, but it seems a little bit weird to me. So sometimes you might decide you don't want to link it anywhere. You can just click none, and it will remove the link to the image at all. If you want to put it back to file URL, you just simply click this. If you want to change it to the attachment post URL, you click this. So we'll visit this page here in just a second so I can show it to you what an attachment page is. In alignment, we can show it as none, left, centered, or right. Yeah, Jerry?
Just want to say the link URL is also used on some like shadow box type plugins and gallery plugins. So if you're using a plugin that does image manipulation, check with its documentation before you set that.
Good point. The world of plugins is crazy complex, and so it makes publishing fun, and it also makes publishing very challenging at times. You can set the size. Again, remember that even though we only uploaded one size image, basically WordPress went ahead and created multiple versions for us. You'll see that it created a full size at 400 pixels wide by 300 pixels tall, a medium at 300 by 225, and a thumbnail at 150 by 150. You might be wondering why it didn't create a large. And that's because in the media settings, or the settings for our media, we have a certain width and height ratio set up for basically determining when something would be determined large, medium, etc. So if this image had been really large, if this image had been like 1024 pixels in width, etc., it would have created the full size, a large, which would have been smaller than full size, a medium, and a thumbnail. It would have created all four. The reason it didn't create a large is because the image that we uploaded wasn't all that large to begin with. So at the moment, I'm going to select alignment none, and I'm going to choose to insert into post. Yes, Jerry?
I was just going to mention alignment because you kind of skipped over that.
Okay.
I interrupted you.
That's all right. So here's the image, and again, this is just in the post editor, but you get to see the caption, and you see how it's added to the photo. So if captions are something that you want to use, you'll know how that's done. The alignment none basically put the image right at the top of the content. All the content basically is being shown below it. And I'll go ahead and click Update. We'll go ahead and look at the post itself. So here's the image. I'm guessing that I chose the medium-sized image. It looks like 300 by 225. You'll see that the tooltip or the title shows up, 1970 Chevelle SS in bright yellow. You notice that we do not see the alt text. Again, we wouldn't see the alt text unless the image would not appear, or if we were using a screen reader. And then the text is happening below. If I click on the image itself, here's what you're going to see, and here's what you may not have known, that a lot of your media is going to create a specific page specifically for the media. So in this case, it's created a specific page for this particular image. It's using the title up here from the title information for the image. It's using the image, it's using the caption. But here's the other bit that you probably didn't see, is that it says the description shows on the attachment page. So that was the bit of text that I inserted or input in the description box when we added the image. So that's kind of simplistics of just adding an image. I know that we added more. If we talk a little bit about alignment, if I click on the image itself, you'll see that we've got a couple of options. I can delete the image altogether, or I can choose this, which is the image editor. I can even size the image. Even though it is a particular size, I can click and drag the corners out. If I highlight it again, as soon as I click on it, I can click and I can actually move it. Let me see if I can. And if I didn't show you that you can click and drag the post editor, you can do that as well. So you can click and drag the image, although at the moment I think it's so big. There you go. So you've seen that I moved the image around now. Of course, I've got something really weird going on with the caption at the top and the image down below. This, of course, shows you all sorts of challenges. I just click undo. But you may not want, your image at the top and the text below. Maybe you want the text to wrap around it. So you can go back to the image editor, and you can choose now. You get different settings, the ability to choose from different sizes, even from a % range. I'll just leave it as is. And I can choose left aligned as opposed to right, and then update. Well, what happened? Nothing changed. The reason that nothing changed is because while I can't see it in the background, there's some HTML that's messing with things. So sometimes you might have to actually put your cursor behind text and hit delete, and you'll see that it now flows around. Why it decided to get rid of my heading text is now a new fun challenge.
Yeah, it's stuck in your caption and stuff.
It's stuck in here. Let's get rid of the
When you
caption.
back down.
I hate captions. We'll get rid of the caption text. All right, so now we have a post that looks like this. Let's see what happens here. Okay, so now we have a post that flows around it. You'll notice that it stripped the formatting for some odd reason. Sometimes things you do will make sense, and other times they'll make no sense whatsoever. How this is being styled, again, is completely dependent upon the style sheet for the theme. So it's really hard to know specifically what it's going to look like when it goes live. You can either view the post or you can update it and then view it live. Entirely up to you. That's the attachment page. All right, so it looks pretty much like it did in the editor, which isn't all that attractive with this text down below. Kind of surprised it doesn't break over on this one. There might be something else going on in HTML mode. We'll have to take a quick peek to see. Shouldn't be anything left for the caption, but
yeah, like you notice that your H2 is broken. It's at the beginning, and then the heading text.
Yeah, see, WordPress at times does funky stuff.
Yeah, the editor is just special.
Yep, which is why this is, one of the biggest kind of learning curves is how to work with the editor and some of the challenges that it provides. It really would behoove you to learn as much as you possibly can about HTML and CSS, even if you never, code a theme from the raw, just to be able to work with the editor.
And one thing that we haven't shown is that you do have a preview before you've actually published it to see. There is a preview mode, and that is at the button that is in the upper right-hand corner of the post editor area. It's above in Publish, and that will go out and it saves and makes a preview. Now, it doesn't always work 100%, but when you're playing around with something on a live site, which is not a great idea, you can go here and at least get some idea how it's going to look before it goes live. I would recommend before if you're building a site, is to not learn this on a live site. And it is, again, theme specific.
Yep, so how it works is theme specific. Let me show you a different way, because typically how I would approach this is a little bit differently than what I've shown you. For me personally, I would put my cursor specifically where I wanted it, and then I would choose to upload insert. For me, this typically works better. We have a new option now that we add media. Because we've added 4 images with this post live, you'll see that it added it to a gallery. And so we could choose them from the media library. They're over there as well. But these 4 images are basically now attached to this particular post because, and the reason that is because we uploaded them while we were in this post editor. So I could go back and choose that same image and then choose left aligned and then choose insert, and you'll see how it shows. Of course, I should have gotten rid of the caption text. But you'll get an idea as far as what it looks like. It still may not be exactly kind of beautiful to the way I want it because of the fact that the style sheet is causing more space around that particular image than I like. But you can see now we have heading text above and we've got the image down below. One other thing that can change sometimes that you might be able to fool with is actually messing with the sizing of things.
So when you do an insert, by default, it inserts it where the cursor was in the text.
Right.
But you can manipulate some of that with HTML to get the positioning.
Yeah, you can manipulate all sorts of stuff through HTML, but that becomes a completely different. Well, it becomes a completely different set of training than this.
Yeah. Somebody asked, when is it live? And when you click publish, it publishes it live to the general public, unless you're, have protected content or whatever. So when the status becomes published, visibility of public in the publish box in the upper right-hand corner, and that date is now, is now or in the past, it's live.
Right. You
can schedule it in the future. You can put it into draft. You can make the visibility, more specific to the people and stuff like that. So there are some restrictions you could do. But the problem with that is when it's in certain modes like this, you cannot go view it. You cannot do a preview directly. You have to hit the preview button, for example, which might or might not work exactly as you want.
Right. So if you did want to change the status of the post, what Jerry was just talking about, the ability to do that is here, at least currently in the top right area. Again, you can move this publish box any way you want, but it's typically left in the top right. If you wanted to change this into, it's already at publish. If you wanted to move it into a draft, or if you wanted to move it into pending review, you can do that here. I'll just leave that alone. The visibility, we showed this a little bit in the past when we were covering the quick edit box, but if I click edit for this, you'll see that we have the same options here. So make the post basically sticky to the front page. We can password protect, or we can, again, cause it to be private. So if I click password protected, I simply put in a password and click OK. And for me, since I'm logged in, everything's fine, but likely for you, if you were to view this page right now, it would tell you that you need a password in order to view it. That's basically how that works. You can see that right now it says visibility password protected, and we'll take that off, put it back to public. Private, again, is basically something I've never used, but in effect what happens is it keeps the post in the back end of WordPress, but it's only available to other logged in users. It's not available to the public. It's never basically made available to the public for regular viewing. So I don't really see the intelligence of that, but that's what that is. And then, like Jerry said here, is you have the ability to publish. If you click, just the standard publish button when you originally created, it's going to publish it immediately at the current date and time that you're working with the content. However, if you want to schedule content, you do have the ability, like I said before, you can post date content. So I can actually, cause this to look like it was actually created back in February. Or if I didn't want to do that, if I wanted to say, don't publish to July 9th, a month from now, and I click OK, you'll see how it changes from publish to schedule. And if I click schedule now, the page is now scheduled, but it's no longer live. So if we go back here,
I think you'll see it because you're logged in as
probably
admin. But if people were outside to go see it, it's just not found.
It's not found. And so this is it's probably the best way to do it, but this would be one way in which you could test content on a live site. You could initially schedule it for a future date and then save it and actually go view it. And if it was fine, you could come back here and change the scheduling to post on the day that you're actually working with it. Of course, if you forgot to do it, your post wouldn't go live until the conditional date and time were met. But that's what scheduling content is. And scheduling content is awesome, especially if you're doing work for clients where, maybe you have a writer that's writing content. And, maybe if you got, say, 24 pieces of content written, as long as they weren't super time sensitive, you could go and basically schedule, 2 posts a month for 12 months and basically just load up their site with effectively, 12 months of content, at a rate of 2 posts a month. Or if you, wanted 1 a week, you'd need 52, pieces of content, etc. But it's a cool little feature. There are plugins that will allow you to schedule content as well, but it's also something that's just built into WordPress. So I guess we'll talk just a couple of seconds about tags and categories. We've already mentioned them, but we'll just talk about them on this page. And then I'll probably just talk a little bit about some of the options through 2011 as far as the appearance. And then I think we'll get into themes. So again, whenever you're creating post content as opposed to creating a page, you do have the ability to assign categories and or tags to the post. So depending upon obviously what categories you have available to you, currently there are 3 2-parent and 1-child categories, you can simply choose one of these. You can also notice that you can choose multiple. So sometimes, maybe some post, was relevant to more than one of your current categories, and that's completely acceptable as well. If when you create the post you find that it doesn't fit a particular category, instead of having to go back to the categories page, you can click Add New Category, and you can basically create one on the fly. So again, remember that how you type it in this box is how it would be displayed to the public if your theme outputs that information. And you can either select it as a parent category, or you can select a parent for it and make it a child category. And then you can just choose Add New Category. It's really fast to do it this way, and you may be thinking, well, what about the category slug? That wasn't an option on this page, where it is an option on the other page. And what you need to know is that WordPress will, by default, it will select the category slug exactly as I showed you before. It'll all lowercase, new -category. So as long as that's the methodology you're following for your post, your category slugs rather, you don't have to change anything. You can add categories from the post page just fine. If you want to use or take a look at your most used categories, you can see those here. And then remember what I said is, if you forgot to assign any category to a particular post, that based on your WordPress settings, WordPress will assign it to whatever category is your catch-all or your default. In this case, it's the general category. So if I don't select anything, it's still going to get assigned to the general category. And then we talked about tags. Again, tags being more kind of laser targeted. Maybe my text is all about Chevelle, 1970 Chevelle SS's, but maybe as far as a tag is concerned, maybe I want to add classic, or maybe just 1970. Maybe I just want to add yellow. Whatever I want to add, I can add. I just separate each with a comma, click the Add button, and you'll see that it's added each here. If I decide that I don't want to use one of those, if I decide I made an error, I can click on the little red X that shows up when I hover over it and remove them. But please note that right now, even though it looks like I've added something, it hasn't actually taken effect, and it won't take effect until I click this button. The button will change its name depending upon the status of the particular post. So when you first create a post, you'll find that it says Publish. If you've already published it, when you come back, it'll say Update, or in this case, it's actually Scheduled. the current status is scheduled. But since I've already saved it once, it's now an update as opposed to saving or publishing. So now that I've done that, the tags will have stuck. I guess last thing I'll talk about right here is maybe this featured image. This again is theme specific, but if I click set featured image, I have the ability to set a featured image to this post, but how you do this is specific to the theme, or the theme decides what it's going to do with a featured image. I believe that for the 2011 theme, it actually has the ability to use the featured image, or it uses it in the header, and I don't know that I want to do that right now, so I won't actually go through this process because I'm not certain in regards to how the 2011 theme works with it, but I do believe that the 2011 theme actually allows you to use a different header image on different pages and or even on different posts. So something to look into. Let's see. Over here in appearance and then themes, we'll get into that in just a second, is where all of your available themes are. Widgets, of course, are where the widgets are. We'll talk about those in a bit. Next thing I want to talk about is about just menus, and then we'll get into theming. And let's see, we're already 30 minutes past this scheduled time, huh?
Yeah, we're at the start of the next one. I sent you a note.
Okay, so I think what we'll do is, yeah, we're gonna talk about menus here for just a couple minutes. That's all it'll take anyway, and then we'll end this webinar and we'll start session 4, such that we don't leave a bunch of people over there hanging, wondering what's going on, and we'll basically pick up themes. I think, Jerry, probably what's going to happen is we're gonna cover themes. And we're probably going to cover plugins and widgets. And I think we're going to have to save WordPress security for another day, unless we want to just go till.
Well, yeah, whatever you need to do, we'll do. We got a lot of stuff here, and we're trying to get it all to you. We're not we're not cutting stuff out, so. Let's see what we can do. So you want to show menus and then we'll hop over?
Yep.
Okay, and you, yeah.
Okay, thought he was going to say something, but he didn't. Okay, so in regards to menus, let's go take a look at the site real quick. We'll go to the home page so we can see the menus. Now, this is another thing that is theme specific. So by that I mean basically this. Most themes now will be set up to work with WordPress custom menus, but please note that not all do. So if you're using an old theme, it may not be coded to work with WordPress custom menus, and if that's the case, then what I'm about to show you will not work. It's a theme-specific feature. Most themes now, if they've been created over the last 12 months or so, should be integrated to work with WordPress custom menus. So right now you'll see that we've got in the main navigation area there's a link to home, to blog, and to sample page. What you need to know in regards to, again, the hierarchy of WordPress, by default it's only going to bring into your main navigational area your actual pages. It's not going to bring in basically links to your posts. So as you create posts, you're not going to see them automatically populate in the navigational area. It expects that you're going to create so many posts that doing so would actually be a detraction rather than a good thing. So all of the posts basically then are contained on the blog page, and again, how many of them are shown on the blog page is dependent upon your themes, your settings inside of WordPress. So right now you can see we have home, blog, and sample page, and again, each of these are basically links to a particular page on our site. Even the blog page, even though it contains a number of posts, is a page in of itself. So if we go back to menus, and you get to that by appearance, and then menus is one way to get to it. you'll see that it says we have the ability to add a menu name. It says to enter the menu name here. So I'll just put this as main navigation. This really isn't important, except for that it's descriptive to you. It's not going to be displayed to the public. So you can give it any name you want, just as long as it makes sense to you. Could be just named menu, could be main menu, whatever you want is perfectly fine. You click the Create Menu button, and it's created. Now the next step is to go over here to this Theme Locations box, and under Primary Menu, this is text that's being determined by the theme. You click this box and you select the new name that you just created the menu over here. So main navigation, click Save. And now we've done the two-step process. Basically, we've created the menu and then we've assigned it basically to the theme locations area. Now, here's one thing to note. Up here in the top area, you'll see that there's a checkbox that says automatically add new top-level pages. If I tick this box, anytime I create a new page, it will be automatically added to the menu. That may or may not be what you want to do. That's entirely up to you, but you need to know that it's there. Down here, there's a couple of options. There's custom links, pages, even categories. So let's say the most standard of which is pages. Let's say that you want to add all three of those pages to your main menu, which is the way it was by default. You can tick the boxes for all three, click the Add to Menu button. You'll see them populate over here on the right. But now that they're over here on the right, we have other options. We can reorder them and we can do other things. So here's an example. Let's say that I want my blog page at the very beginning. I just simply just click and hold, drag it up. This now will be on the far left as opposed to where it was originally. Similarly, we can also do some other things. If we click the drop-down arrows, we can actually do some other stuff. Even though the blog is named blog, I can actually show the link or the menu item as our new blog. I can also set a title attribute. Again, you would use something intelligent and make sense for SEO. Again, this is like a tooltip. It's going to show you that the original navigation label was blog, and I can go ahead and simply just save this. So I can minimize this and then remember to click Save to save menu. So if we go look at it live now, we're going to see that we've reordered the blog and we've renamed it. So even though the page itself was named blog, we can control the labels individually, and you can see the title, the tooltip shows up when I hover over it. The next thing we'll do is, if the theme supports it, you can create drop-down menus, and you do that by this. So let's say that I want to create, I'll put sample page underneath home, and I want to move sample page as a drop-down. So I can click and drag it to the right, and you'll see that that box shifted. And when it does, I can leave it, and you'll see this extra space here. Click Save Menu, and we'll now have a drop-down menu. Before we go show it to you, we'll talk about custom links and categories. Custom links are really cool because you can now link and add a menu navigation to something that's not even on your site. It doesn't even have to be page or post content. You simply enter the URL and then enter a label. I'll click Add to Menu, and you'll see that that's now there, basically a link to go follow us on Facebook. And lastly, under categories, if I wanted to view all categories, I could actually add a menu item that was specific to the category. And I can change this label again. Add a title, etc. Remember to save menu. and you'll get the general idea in regards to what you can do with WordPress custom menus. So we had the ability to reorder things. If I hover over home, you'll see that we have a drop down. Again, this is theme dependent. We have a link that'll take us to Facebook, which isn't even a page or post on our site. And then we have a link to the general category page, which if I click on it, you'll see that that page is set up to basically archive and show any posts that were basically assigned to the general category. So I think that's it on menus.